What's up, internet world? How are y'all doing out there? We are joined today by Mr. Mike of We Speak English Good, who's real dope, and they do lots of stuff, like the interviews and the musicking. Actually, it's like fucking half the shit I do on my channel, they do on their channel, so it's fucking banging awesome. So, like, real cool stuff.
Symbiotic, baby. Symbiotic.
Definitely. Yo, what's up, Golden Jenny from Norway? That's always fun to say because that means we got that international, continental vibe going on off the jump.
Hey, Bonnie, what's up?
Yeah, Bonnie's here too. Reina Mystique's in the house. Y'all should go follow Reina Mystique if you want to wake up in the morning and watch a lady have very positive energies in your face while you're trying to like fight off the morning grumpies. So I'm gonna throw that out there like that. Yeah, let's get into it real proper. As y'all know, my name is Holden Stephan Roy. In case you didn't, that's my name. And this is Bridge the Gap, the show where we take interesting people, such as Mike over here from We Speak English Good, and we walk through the story of their lives and we extract knowledge nuggets, kind of just trying to learn from the different perspectives and different realities other than the ones that we face, which I find cool because watching Mike's show, he's talking to people all over the world, having conversations with all kinds of different people from all kinds of different backgrounds and experiences, and it's like truly cool, you know, in a sense that makes us all like peers on comparable missions in the world. And so it's exciting to have you here. In order for my first question to work, we do need a pre-first question. Mike,
Okay.
can you tell us where you were born and the early part of your life takes place?
Okay, so I'm posting that we're live now. so
That's all right, man. This
I'm
happens.
I'm so sorry. I am going to answer that question, I promise. But I want to just let everybody know we're live. We're just quick and in and out, in and out. That fucking this phone thing is an addiction, isn't it? It's horrible. Um, I was born in I was born in actually the city that I am currently in Oregon, Ohio, and it's Oregon and not Oregon, even though
Oregon.
most people say Oregon everywhere else except for here. Here they say Oregon and they will go out of their way to correct you. They will say, "Oh, it's Oregon," and it's like I'll poison you and your family.
I
But
understand.
but no, they're lovely people around here. But the
No, honestly, that was it. We just need to know that you coming from Ohio. You coming from that Oregon.
I came from Ohio, but it's a weird thing because
No, we're
like
going to go through it all. All the
oh,
parts that come after are after the first question.
my bad. Okay. I won't draw out like that. Then I'll get
Nah,
ready.
don't even worry. It's the whole vibe, my guy. You're in for a trip. It's different than when I went on your show. But like, he's also a musician, as y'all could tell. The guy does like 73 instruments. I gotta decide if I want to keep this obscure instrument, that level of instrumentation in his life. Sings, does like all of it. So he's got the musical journey. And this first question is to kind of get us to know that whole side of things. And it's a bit of a story. And when it lands, you can answer it in that little, and you'll be in Oregon. Okay, I'm giving up already.
Yeah,
And
it's
you're gonna be over there when the question lands. But it all starts with my girlfriend as she's washing the dishes one day, and she's got her phone, and she's playing that Black Eyed Peas song, the "I Got a Feeling," ooh, and she's vibing, and she's dancing, and she's doing her thing, and she's kind of like, I'm just sitting there staring at her, and I'm like, yo, why she's washing dishes? And I'm like, when did this song become chores music? And it was like this big breakthrough in my mind, right? Like, this song is now a song that people put on to exercise, chores, that kind of vibe. When you're in like a certain mind state and you want to do funner things, is kind of the purpose of that song in our reality now. But if we run that back 10 years, that shit is 2 a.m., you drunk, high time in the clubs, V night, the song of the party kind of thing. It's like, that's what it represented, a completely different vibe for so many different people. And then I realized the song didn't change. Everybody else changed. The environment and the context of the song changed entirely over the course of that decade. And I realized what really happens is that as people get older, the club music becomes the chores music. So all them little ones right now at the Cardi B's and whatever, they're going to grow up and that's their dishes music. But then, as I told this story to people, I found out I was a little bit mistaken. Cardi B's is already dishes music because whatever is the club vibes is actually the chores vibes if you get kind of older in life. And I was like, that's kind of crazy to think about, right? And then we start thinking about evolutions and journeys, right? And if we think about all the interviews and all the stuff we talk about, most often as artists, we start the story in our adolescent era when we start forming our identities or when we start getting into stuff or when we start creating. But really, the story of the music in our lives goes all the way back to the earliest memories of our lives because frankly, from the day you came out the womb, there was probably even music playing in that hospital that you were absorbing from that very second on. So like, as an example, I can remember being like 4 or 5 years old and my dad's got these gray boxes in the apartment. The fucking amplifier and the radio and the tape deck and all this shit. They were the wires connecting everything with the going out to the speakers all around the room and be blasting his Led Zeppelin tapes. And at night it was the 90s techno EDM scene straight from the clubs of Montreal. My mom, she was more into the discos and she was more into the musicals. It was less fun. Christmas time, we had this tape of Christmas remixes. Like, they were EDM remixes to Christmas bangers, and we'd play while opening presents, and that was it for the year. And so all of these memories and moments kind of create this foundational element to, like, yo, what's up, Mighty Mighty? This, like, foundational element to, like, the experiences of music that, like, later on go on to shape us a lot in our musical identities, often way more than we're even cognizant of. So I was hoping, Mike, you could take us all the way back to the youngest Mike you can remember being and tell us a little bit what it sounded like to be you before you had control over the music. Not what made you start creating, not when you got into it. More like, what were your parents bumping? What was it like to be like 5 in your household type thing?
Well, that was a great lead into that question, by the way. Thank you. The So for me, I was just sitting here thinking as you were like sort of completing that. Um, some of my earliest memories is me at me being down in Mexico with my mother and like having bandera music on, and not even bandera. That's like something else. I'm slipping the mind because I'm
No worries, man.
but like like straight up music straight from Mexico, and my mother always loved that, and my dad. So that would, as a young boy, I remember seeing that, my family going to these family reunions and seeing my family dancing together and doing the big circle. Man, I wish I could remember the names of all these things, but I'm toasted off my ass. So
Yeah, it's
like,
gonna come back to you. It's like you start it's like riding a bike after a while. You're a little rusty at
anybody
first,
knows
and
what
you
I'm
flow
talking.
in.
Yeah, well, if anybody knows what I'm talking about, like the type of music and the type of dance, please let me know because I would love to be able to actually remember what the hell that was. Uh, God, but in any case, and then also on my dad's side, I remember he liked the classic rock, like Deep Purple, ZZ Top was a huge favorite, and so like I had this very eclectic feel of music. I mean, my mom liked pop music and stuff, and pop music is the thing about pop music is for a majority of people, that is the soundtrack of their life. So even if you are, the house mom washing dishes, even if Cardi B is jamming, singing WAP or whatever, they're still transporting back to the club, back to youth, back to another time when they were free, and it's just because pop is always celebrating love, it's always celebrating youth, it's celebrating life itself, and that's why you gotta. There's always room for pop in my eyes, but um, uh, anyways, the for me, I had a really eclectic, broad spectrum of music. I mean, my dad loved the '70s rock. he loved like Tijuana Brass, which is the do. It's ridiculous. But then he would love like old jazz music, swing music. I remember my dad always loving vinyl and always going out of his way to get records and to get record players. And my dad used to take me to all kinds of places. Like I remember I was just telling this story on the podcast yesterday, but my dad used to take me to like auction houses and weird antique shops where he just knew people. And because my dad was a salesman, and so he was very gifted with networking, and he just knew everybody. And I still get people who are like, "Are you Willie's son?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." If they see my last name, they'll be like, "Oh, you Willie's son?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, that's my dad." And blah. Oh, I love, he was such a great guy. Whatever. Anyways, uh, love my dad. God rest his soul. He passed, but in any case, he used to expose me to a lot of these different musics, and I just remember as a kid really really loving jazz and big band swing music like Benny Goodman, Glenn Miller, Gene Krupa. I
Yeah.
always wanted to be a drummer coming up as a kid because I loved Gene Krupa and like I remember seeing like the movie. Like my dad used to show me like the Glenn Miller story with oh my god, what's his name? He was the original host of the Tonight Show. Steve Allen. Steve Allen. All the kids know who Steve Allen is. Steve Allen. He was one of the original hosts of the Tonight Show back in the day. But he played Benny Goodman, and it was just I remember just watching these biopics. Who's the guy who was in It's a Wonderful Life? Who's that? What's that guy's name?
I'm not sure, but somebody in the chat's gonna know. That one people are gonna know.
Yeah, well, he was a very famous actor, Jimmy
Hold on.
something.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Whatever. He played Glenn Miller. I don't know why all these names are coming back to me, but I can't remember fucking the dances of my childhood, of the ethnic side. Thank you, Jimmy Stewart, James Stewart.
I knew it.
Thank
I
you,
knew
Bonnie.
somebody would know.
And of course, it would be Bonnie.
Yo,
Um,
she's super into big band.
Oh yeah, man. So I had a really big thing, and then also my sister, who was 5 years older than me, she was, I mean, she was into like, she was the one who introduced me to like hair metal and like Ozzy Osbourne and fucking and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and fucking and NWA and Ice-T, like all those old school rap, fucking like Pink Floyd. I mean, my sister introduced me to a whole lot of shit. My dad introduced me to a whole lot of shit, and my mom had a great influence too. Just because she, I mean, just because like not every kid gets that experience to have like music from other countries being blasted in your house. You know what I mean? It's like because that's not too, when you're coming up in especially in the Midwest. There's a few kind of music that there's a when I'm working as a musician, people only want to hear like Freebird and fucking Sweet Home Alabama and shit. So there's a very specific taste here, and growing up in the Midwest, you might miss out on some of these cultural things that are out there, and I give my mom a lot of credit because I'm just so happy that I was inundated with that culture to the point where my mom did take me down to Mexico and did take me down to meet my tias and my tios and like just just like history, so much history. I was just inundated with it, and so that's all influence, man. That's all influence. I have a huge affinity for Latin music, man, and just that Latin groove, like Afro-Cuban and just polyrhythms are just my shit, dude. I just fucking love them so much.
That was an excellent answer. Usually I have to like guide people there, and you just ran with it, so that was dope.
What I do,
Uh,
man.
um, so
This is
when you
what I
were,
do, baby. This is how we do it out here.
yo, where, Bonnie wants to know where in Mexico is your family from?
It's called Ciudad de Maíz. It's a little village down. Fuck, is it in Chihuahua? I can't remember. But it's it's like a little mountain farm village that my family had like a really deep has a deep history, still has a deep history, and like my family still owns a property down there. um, I mean, it's like a really big sought after property. I mean, my family has ties to like the Mexican and Spanish revolution when Mexico broke off into independence. Like my family has ties to like Pancho Villa, and really aiding. They served in politics, and they're artists and musicians, and I mean, like honestly, it's so beautiful because like I have tias and tios who, tell us all about this shit. My mom, obviously, she tells us about her upbringing. I mean, it was just, it's crazy to think how different of an upbringing they had compared to me and my soft ass now. Like my mom tells you stories that'll make you literally cry, and then I'm complaining because I got a pill addiction when I was in my 20s, me. So it's like it's incredible the transformation of a generation. What how that can happen from like the homeland to big fat guy complaining on the internet.
I mean, on that note, even if I
American
listen to
dream.
like, yo, if you compare Montreal 25 years ago, let's say to Montreal today and the growing up experience, it's astronomically different. I think like in a lot of ways, maybe depending on where you were in Montreal, the level of hardship would have been like astronomically different. Some
Yeah.
parts were nice, some parts were eh. But now today it's like blurred and everything's kind of different and it's a lot more internet. So it
Yeah.
kind of comes with the gift and the curse of it. But I think it's cool how much your like family history you're connected to. Like I swear in all of the conversations I've not had a single person be like, and my family is connected to this historic battle that people have heard of. That's a first for me. And that's like an interesting thing that like, and that comes
But
from
dude, my
like,
family's tied to Cesar Chavez. I mean, like, I got a lot of like activism in my family. Like not even like not like insane fucking. Not, I'm not calling activism insane. I'm saying not just like in the streets marching all the time, but like just legit like going to see Cesar Chavez speaking shit. Like fucking my aunt before she passed away, she was telling me about all this history, and I wish I would have recorded it. Honestly, I wish I would have had my own like little personal podcast with her. But she was telling us of stories that lead back to royalty in Spain. You know what I mean? Like coming over, and like stories of like it's a rich daughter connected to royalty who breaks off and goes off and finds love with a lowly soldier who and gets banned from the family. Gets what is that called when you're banned?
exiled.
Yeah, gets exiled and goes off and becomes very successful on her own, and like creates like a empire of them for herself. And so like it's amazing to me that I like now on the white side of the family that I have a little bit of history, but like it's not as, I mean,
So
there's
that's why I thought
there's
it was
some
so
depth on both
nifty.
sides.
Cause like I feel like in the more North America, the other like let's say Canada, USA kind of culture, that like desire to know
Mhm.
or share isn't 100% the same.
Well, I gotta admit, like it's not either for my mom doesn't really talk about it like openly. She's just like, let me sit you down and tell you about your history. It was never like that. My mom doesn't like talking about that shit. It's like my aunts and uncles didn't really talk about it either because they didn't really see the need. It was like we're in America now. We're fucking Americans. We're doing this shit. Like was
Mm,
you don't need to learn Spanish anymore. You don't need to learn shit. Like you just learn how to be American, and you accept it and you acclimate. And that's what that's pretty strong in the culture. Like with Mexicans and new and immigrants coming from South America and Mexico, like we keep our head down, you fucking do work hard, and you keep going, like, and that's just sort of the culture, and you don't really stop and talk about it or reminisce on the good old days about fucking starving in the country that you were fleeing from. So it's part of the culture really to not really say it. So some of these things are pried out of, and And like I said, my aunt talked about it like only in knowing that she was gonna die soon. So she took it
Mm.
upon herself to share these things and like cook like these traditional meals. I miss my aunt a lot. She was
No,
beautiful.
that's fair, but like in everything you just said, I think it's like especially nifty up in Canada, where like let's say you're our border. It's like New York and Vermont and shit, right? Very different realities. Um, and holy shit, is there like a command to delete shit?
Yeah,
You
you can
could.
just push slash ban whatever that
Is that
person.
how you do it? I didn't figure it out the entire time I've been on
Dude, I didn't
Twitch.
know how to do it
I watched
until
Reina hit
last month.
delete, and I'm like, the
No,
fuck just happened there? That's a thing you can do?
I don't think
Wow.
I don't know if she did it or if
I know Golden Jenny seems to have banned it, but
yeah.
anyway.
She's like delete, and then all of a sudden like boom.
And I'm
And it,
like, damn, did Reina just show me
yeah,
a hack?
she came in here, just took over your chat.
That's
Um,
amazing.
that's how she usually does things, by the way. That's
Well,
usually
I'm like,
her
yo,
MO.
y'all like know a bunch of Twitch shit. I'm pretty lazy on my Twitch learning. I'm like, it works. Do I need more? Probably. Have I thought about it? No. But
Yeah.
even that, so yeah, but like just, yo, man, nobody talks about Mexican culture quite like that. I mean, we get to like see sensationalized news stories of convoys and like fucking border wall hyperbole, and there's definitely, I guess, stuff that gets satirized on TV. Like, I mean, yeah, I know some folk who are from Mexico who work in Montreal and stuff, and I suppose they kind of mimic that personality. The one thing I've ever noticed about working with folk who came straight from Mexico is they worked harder and never complained.
Yeah. The
Every time.
complaining only draws attention, and it's just like we're just keep your head down, fucking work your ass off, and fucking and keep moving, man. And even if you're here, legally, when fucking Donald Trump, because there are Mexicans that remember times where they will come and just scoop your ass up and just send you back and uproot your life. There are people. I mean, even to this day, I can't say, like people are getting life on uprooted. But I remember my mom when and there were several people. It wasn't just my mom, but like when Donald Trump was elected, there was like a series. It wasn't something that they should have been like up at night worrying about, but they know how this shit can go down here and how easily this shit can get reversed. And my mom's an American citizen, so like there's Donald Trump wasn't going to come to her house and send her ass back down to Mexico. It was just but there was a real concern that with all this border talk and really the media hype on all of it was it frightened her, and there was a lot of people who felt that way too, and these are just people who've been Americans for a long time, who came over, got their work visa, did everything the proper way, but yet still felt like they were going to get their life uprooted. Now, again, those fears were probably amplified greatly by the media and how much they were, amplifying the stupid shit that Donald Trump was saying, because he was saying stupid shit, and there was fuckery going on down in the border and stuff too. But I'm just saying, like, I don't think it's something they shouldn't have had to feel, and it's heartbreaking to think that my mom, who's been a legal citizen here for over, I can't even, it's been more years than I can even remember that she's been a legal citizen here, still feels that. But that's part of it. It's part of the immigration process, I think. I mean, you always just feel like you're trying to acclimate. You're always trying to feel like you're just fitting in. This is, you're coming from a different culture, coming into this, trying to acclimate to this multicultural place that is America. This is a crazy place with different cultures and different ideas, and so I can understand. I can understand why Mexicans want to just sort of keep working, work their ass off, keep their head low, and just keep moving, man.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's definitely
Makes sense in my head, I guess. I don't know
no, I
if
mean
that's how
it's
it works.
a lot to think about. I mean, in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, I look at it like everything you said is super valid, and it's fucked up that anybody would feel that way. And I mean, as an outsider who got sensationalized news stories, it certainly looked like Donald Trump was leveraging immigration law as a way to fearmonger in order to make a bunch of people who didn't like immigrants vote for him. That would be my perception.
Absolutely.
But I don't really feel like I should be personally having huge opinions on American politics, but
Why not?
that's what it looked like.
So this shit affects you guys too. I mean, this is a lot of people, a lot of different countries look to America as some kind of beacon.
I mean,
but I do want to say that Biden. I know you have something to say about that, but I gotta say that Joe Biden is doing an even worse job, and it's even going worse. And I don't think it's anyone's fault because even Obama did a horrible job with it.
What I can say,
it's a fucked up system.
Is the Democrats, I think, are scarier for global peace.
Yeah,
is the truth of it. That's my perception. Is they seem to like war more, and that scares me. Trump seemed to be de-escalating on a war front, so he might have been shit for like people in your country, and he might not have been nice with Trudeau, and they had some beef over milk. But like, I mean, like I'm not voting for this guy, so all of my opinions and shit, like, it's not even my country. I already have a bias. I'm like already a bunch of things, so it's like my opinion on Trump is like who cares? You know, like when it's like some guy in like, if some guy honestly in some random country that we just picked out of a hat had an opinion on Trump, it would affect their country almost as much, whatever he does, because frankly it affects the whole world and nobody would give a shit. So why is it like my opinion in Montreal counts more? It doesn't. It's just I'm not an American citizen. I should be commenting maybe on the international relations in regard to Canada. Okay, fine, but I'm not. I don't have an opinion on that because I don't know fuck all about that.
Right, and you're a musician in Montreal, like trying to do music and rap and
I mean, I think like what I saw of Canadians speaking on the subject was boring. It wasn't like real. It was just fuck this guy's ethics, and it's like, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it got real repetitive, got real boring, but it got real financially beneficial to these dying, archaic news organizations that
bro, Jimmy Fallon got to eat for 4 years on that shit.
Exactly. Trump fucking fed a lot of people, a lot of these dying organizations, which by the way are dying now even worse than before. And good riddance to bad rubbish. Fuck them. Like fuck CNN, fuck Fox News. It's mostly Fox News' fault, anyways. That the media is
MSNBC and them is all pretty bad too.
Oh, I know,
my
but
perception.
Absolutely. But if you trace it back to like the early days of Fox News was the first network to realize that you can play, like you can treat
That's
it
what
like
the Murdoch guy owns Fox.
Yeah, so Rupert Murdoch took over, and then his Roger Ailes, who thank God that guy is off, and he got me too'd, so fuck that guy. But he created this insane way of distributing information and turned it into basically like Monday Night Football or Monday Night Soccer.
That's big facts.
But
like they didn't invent that shit. I mean, you could argue that like it was just like if you looked at entertainment media, that was just going on for a minute. That's how they used to sell records, right? Like they created the stories, so all of it's manufactured. And like sensationalist media, it goes all the way back to like Victorian England when like they invented murder to sell newspapers. Like, I mean, when I say invented murder, I mean they invented the idea of murder to sell newspapers. Gotcha, believe it or not. So true crime runs back to the mid 1800s in an effort to sell newspapers. But like, so like, I hear what you're saying. I look at I think people play up on sensationalist headlines on some assumption that people don't have attention spans. But I think you and I can attest for the fact that if you make an interesting piece of content, motherfuckers will sit there for like 3 hours watching your shit. And people just make boring content, and a lot of these newspapers really are. You look at the sites and you read the content, it's vapid as fuck. It's like, nah, it's not interesting. That's why nobody reads your shit. It's like you're not saying anything because everyone's rushing to get that top Google slot by like slapping out the information first rather than worrying about being credible. And that's why Last Week Tonight kind of slaps a little harder when it's not being too left wing. It slaps a little harder because they actually take the time to like at least give you a perspective.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. I've always gravitated more towards comedians in that avenue of distributing information, like going back to like Jon Stewart and The Daily Show, and like when he first took over, that was like right around 9/11. And I remember, like, and then that started the Bush administration, which was the rise of the neocons, and like, a lot of those tactics that were made in that administration is what is feeding the liberal, like literally a lot of those people from that administration went and became Democrats, and now are just basically doing the same shit on the other side. I mean, it's there's no real difference in either one of them.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Either side. Again, I'm not Republican by any means, and I'm not fucking Democrat by any means, but it's just become a really sick system that I really don't know how to get out of this shit. I mean, obviously, I'm a musician in Ohio.
So in theory, if y'all tried to organize on some third party candidate, get that motherfucker to 5% of the vote, that does something. I don't remember what it does, but that legitimizes that third party. And that would be like y'all's best move as a country, is what I understand watching a bunch of YouTube videos on the subject. That's my whole knowledge. Bunch of YouTube videos. But yo, I totally feel what you're saying about politics in your country and its polarity, but like my country's not that much better. We have a third party, and that just dilutes shit, and so nothing changes. Like, and then nothing happens, because like, honestly, man, I couldn't even tell you 5 good Canadian politics issues, bro, because like shit's not that litty. I mean, the unemployment shit's COVID stats, and then like, I don't know, it gets real boring, and I should probably care more, but it's so. Yeah, is the pipeline still an issue? I forgot, because, like, life moves on, and then Canadian politics is so hard to get. I heard Trudeau has another scandal. You're like, it's probably lame. Like, you're not, like, excited for this shit. Like, American politics has, like, a spiciness to it, which kind of makes Canadian politics kind of lame, which is probably like, oh, yeah, the dead Indigenous children is a very big issue in Canada. We cancel Canada Day.
Damn.
Yeah,
Canada.
No, I wouldn't say like the whole country, but yeah, we got like international like news and shit. Like most of us didn't celebrate. A bunch of us wore orange shirts and shit because like, end of the day, our government participated in genocidal actions and they got caught. They just got caught.
What
like
didn't
fucking.
Man. I don't know a lot of.
Yeah, but it's not often they get caught hard, and then every week you're finding out about another mass grave site of another 200 dead kids that they stole. Like, yo, the residential school system's mad whack. So anyway, I don't want to go like too deep on that, but Canada's got dirt right now that it's dealing with. So I guess it drowns out regular political issues.
Well, that's the whole thing too, man. That's the whole thing that I was just that. The problem is I feel like that the media has just become sort of this arm of this technocratic oligarch, and it's sort of, I feel like.
Can you define technocratic oligarch?
Sure. Like technocratic would be like a government based on technology based being ran and enforced by like the tech industry. So we would say like over here Silicon Valley, and then oligarchs are basically like there's only a few companies or a few entities that rule and make decisions, and sort of that's what's sort of happening when you have these like governments and corporations, especially coming from China. Like we're just sort of they're just sort of making these mergers. And they're just sort of taking these governments along with them because they have to like bend these policies to sort of to make these things happen. And I don't know. I'm going way too far off the end here.
No, it's cool. I'm with you actually. So I believe in your technological oligarch. I actually follow tech news, and I think it's crazy. Like as an example, but people. So Apple's so mighty.
Like who controls the information? That's
data gang. That's why I'm on some of this shit for real. I have a whole like thing I'm trying to bring through, but hashtag data gang to get people more like invested in data centric approaches and whatnot. Because like, the ops, so the people that we don't like necessarily are doing this. So if let's say you don't like a system and you want to change it, you kind of probably have to have at least an equal footing in fighting them. So everybody's on that data shit. You need data to play any game now. And then you look at what's happening, and it's like Apple got so big that Microsoft, Google, and Amazon have teamed up on Windows 11 to fight the Apple ecosystem. And it's like, holy shit.
Right.
Like, is that not a holy shit? Like, those three, they used to be like the big four, and now it's Apple versus the other three. Yeah. And you're like, oh.
They're creating these monoliths, man.
I mean, what can governments do? Look, Amazon Web Services, right? It is the internet. That's why nobody goes after Amazon around the world, because every government probably relies on Amazon Web Services for half their internet ecosystem.
Right. And
so what the fuck are you going to do?
Parler. Remember, they took down Parler. Amazon kicked them off their server after they kicked off Trump off of Twitter. They just took down Parler. They just like eliminated it, which is really fucking scary. Look, whatever you feel about,
I agree,
the distribution of information and like, censoring and all that shit, the idea that these people could just shut down an entire platform when these other platforms, by the way, were like, if you don't like it, build another Twitter, build the next Twitter if you don't like it. And it's like, okay, fine. And Parler sort of comes along. I mean, I'm not a part of Parler. I'm not interested in being part of Parler, but I am definitely interested in people being able to disseminate and fucking distribute information and make educated decisions on their own. And
I kind of like actually agree with you a lot on that shit, especially because it's Amazon that has that level of power, and there's no way to stop them.
Whoever controls the information controls the fucking narrative, controls the fucking the outcome, and the fucking like. They're feeding us whatever they want to feed us, and they're all sort of working together. The New York Times and fucking Apple and fucking and the Democratic Party. Like, it's all
but
just.
It's actually like even deeper than that shit, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
I don't know how far you've looked into the power of Visa and MasterCard.
Oh shit! Yeah, I mean, I've seen them shut down. Like, what was it? WikiLeaks. They shut down.
Shit. Like, because basically what'll happen is they'll prevent you. Visa and MasterCard are the banking industry, right? Now there's technically Square, which is ran by Jack Dorsey of Twitter. He also runs Square, right? Crazy shit, right? Square is actually big. It's so big it is a Visa and MasterCard and power of transactions. But basically, Visa and MasterCard have these ethical codes. So like I found out, like, look, my company has a product where they do virtual credit cards. So like that shit's nifty actually. It's like privacy.com in the States. We don't have that. We're like an alternative to that. Basically I was like, bro, I could think of a million great ideas. You're trying to have an affair, great ad. You're trying to buy drugs, great ad. Like, come on, think about the ad potential of discrete credit card transactions. That's an amazing fucking thing to have. And then they're like, yeah, Visa will fucking fuck you up if you try to like buy drugs or have affairs in your ads on some ethical concerns. And so if you want Visa to approve your company, like straight up, they wouldn't let me make weed store purchases at first. You have to like prove that the validity of your, I guess, reputation as a company for a very long time before you're even allowed to buy drugs and alcohol through these virtual cards based off of all these regulations. You're like, what? That means there's like even deeper levels of control going on in terms of this level of censorship, where it's like, yeah, sure, Parler wants to do what it wants. It's never good. There will never be an alternative to the Facebooks and shit, because Visa and MasterCard have ethics norms that will fuck up everybody's free speech principles, and they don't give a fuck about free speech.
And they're all talking to each other, as they proved in fucking how they are all colluding on how they all came together to get Trump out of office. Like, they do collude, they do talk to each other. It's foolish to say that these are their own independent companies who work and they can make their own rules. No, they're bending rules. They're fucking they're bending rules. They're inconsistent with the rules. They're doing whatever they can to shape the narrative that's going to benefit them the most. And even though Parler will never be another Twitter, that's still a threat to Twitter. That's still a threat to Facebook. And these motherfuckers, they still, just as the media feels that independent journalists are a threat to them, they fucking are a threat. You know, like so
Yo, I think
these are
these companies though,
competition. They do care about competition. They do care about making money. They do care about a bottom line,
but I
and
also
that's what it's
think
all
that these
about.
companies are way more international than anybody gives them credit. Like, yo, look at how Facebook
Absolutely.
gave the internet to Africa. But what did that really mean? And I'm not playing, right? Like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
places in the world where via satellite, this, that, the next thing. So motherfuckers open up their phone because these places, and a lot of times, um, don't a lot of the times these places don't have computers, so it's all mobile shit. So
Mhm.
Facebook becomes the internet, and it's like, imagine Facebook opens up and it's not Google, it's just like a Facebook version of a Google interface, and then Facebook is another app within that, and the whole internet is almost siphoned through the Facebook system from multiple countries, that where they're saying in Africa the populations are going to double while the rest of the world retracts. So in the data gang world, it's almost like these guys are saying, "Fuck America, we're gonna go all double down on the future and really get some control in a lot of places." And like when I look at that, I'm like, "Wow, that's some crazy shit that's happening out there that nobody's talking about."
But then you look at countries like I think it was Australia, but there's several countries that actually started banning Facebook because they were like, "Fuck Facebook, fuck Twitter." These are not like there was a country in South America that rejected Facebook and Twitter. They're like, "There's no way that you're going to censor me in my own country because you decided what can be said and what cannot be said." And fuck them. That's what I say. Fuck them. I'm
That's why
that
like
I
giving
love
the
that.
internet to a country is so scary
Right,
because
exactly. Because who controls that information that's going to out there? And you also see Facebook working with governments to control information, i.e., fucking America. Like they definitely are targeting each other to create a narrative, and it's a very scary situation when you have this much power, this much control, and it's just in the hands of a very few people. And that's always the argument, right? The top 1%, but this is like the 1% of the 1%, and
from
and
what
they're
I
they're protecting
hear,
their interests. They're
isn't there
protecting.
like antitrust shit going on to fuck up Facebook in them?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there is. I don't know. And like, I hopefully, I hope they fucking break that shit up because they are running a monopoly on a lot of shit. And
Like I got told that, well, not that I got told. I watch a couple of people. From what I understand, they want to fuck up Amazon, and because they all got too big, for
right.
real. And that's the big debate: is are they too big? And so they're actually debating that in Congress a little bit. And they want to try to split Amazon Web Services, and all this shit into different companies. Take Facebook, Oculus, make them all individual companies. That's like what they're trying to do, and
Hmm.
that's being like, I heard like a hot topic now, but I'm not up to date on the outcomes of it. But
Yeah, man.
yeah, no, you're not wrong to a point where apparently your government agrees.
Dude, and well, and not as so far as to agree, but they'll go as far as they're starting to demand. Like I don't know if you've seen like the deplorable 12 or whatever they're calling them, but they're calling these 12 people the biggest misinformation people on Facebook. They have multiple platforms, and they're calling for if someone's banned on one platform, they want them to be banned on all platforms for spreading misinformation, particularly in regards to COVID-19 vaccinations. And so they have these 12 people who are they're pushing and they're putting pressure on Facebook and threatening them with fucking litigation and changing shit around where they'll be able to control it. And so they took it. The White House has taken it upon themselves to sort of research these 12 people and determine that they are they're killing people. They're killing grandma. You know, like just with these people. And you know, whatever you feel about the vaccines, whatever, I'm never a fan of throttling information on any level. But you know, in any case, so now the government is starting to put pressure on them, and so you're seeing that. So not only do they work together, but now sometimes they don't work together, and sometimes the
No, I
government
think
is
they all ops right now. I think they're really that techno. I forgot the term you used. The techno something oligarch. I think that's real, and I
correct.
think they mad don't. Cause yo, if you look at just leave America and go look at what's going on in Europe, the EU has spent the last 5 6 years going to war. Like the only reason there's even a California law for data protection is because the EU passed the GDPR law, which anybody working in online world is now very well aware of, because if you store client data, you are legally required to delete a European's data or they can sue yo ass, even if you little Mike over in wherever you're at, Ohio, right? So like when it comes down to like, I mean, nobody gives a fuck about like us, but like the shit's really there in my opinion, so the EU can sue the big social media companies and get money. It's actually kind of fucked up too. The EU's kind of like really like that. They really do pass laws to sue American companies for fucking large ass amounts, tied up in litigation, but when they close, these American companies are like, okay, fine, here's $400 million, whatever. And it's like, yo, this is all shit that happens, and like it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I agree. You know, there's something about, you know, like there's something about this type of control that always hits red bells when you hear so much focus on, like the idea of race and stuff, like the idea of how much it's been amplified in these last few years. When I've been saying this a lot, but you know, like they're sort of amplifying this idea that and focusing on our differences, and they're sort of turning us against each other because they're protecting their own interests. They're protecting their own interests because if we start thinking about why we are in these positions we are in, we'll start realizing that these assholes have been robbing us blind for years. I mean, when you find out that Jeff Bezos hasn't paid like there's been years where Jeff Bezos didn't pay any taxes, period. And I know that he pays taxes and various
No, it
other
isn't. It's fucked
avenues.
up. No, you're right. Fuck corporate tax law.
But these
Yo,
motherfuckers
fuck
are
capital. Yo, hold up. On your states, fuck capital tax law. Y'all should be real. Y'all should go up to all of your politicians and be like, tax capital like it's wages and tax wages like it's capital. Y'all should just run that. Run that as a gauntlet, because wages are taxed at a higher rate than capital in the States. And that's weird because capital is not money you work for. It's just money you have that gains interest. And that's taxed less than the money you work for. It's not the same in my country. I found that out. My accountant's like, you're an idiot. That's the States. And I'm like, fair enough. But that's a real thing. So that's really where it is. So it's like being rich is just a privilege in your country, which is fucking weird.
Well, yeah, and that's where it comes down to is the have and have nots. And it's like when I say they're protecting their own interests by amplifying these our differences, you know, like I got in a little bit of I got, and you were there. I got into
I
a little
watched
bit
it.
of, yeah, you know, with somebody, with LG, who is a fantastic rapper. I love what she does. I'm a fan, and it was, you know, it's hard for me to even like talk about it. It was like something that deeply affected me, and the idea, I didn't even bring up the idea of black on black crime. The chat did, and I just sort of threw it in there, and you know, she lit up, and there was several things, but like specifically talking about black on black crime, you know, I'm really glad I had that conversation. I'm really glad that she was patient with me because I didn't realize that this is tied into that narrative
Yeah.
of painting a picture of the black community. But we do have to talk about the fact that there is crime that happens in these lower income
But yo,
places.
so let's talk about that shit.
Right. Can I finish this real quick?
Yeah,
And
go
I
for it.
want to hear what you have to say because this is, you know, like when you look at like murder rates, you know, like, you know, brown people, Mexicans kill Mexicans, the most Mexicans. Black people kill the most black people. White people kill the most white people. But the through line in all of this is that it happens in lower socioeconomic areas. Now, is there white privilege? Yeah, I've seen it, especially being in an interracial marriage. Is there racism? Fuck yeah, I've seen it, especially being in an interracial marriage and a product of an interracial fucking relationship of my you know, my parents were interracial. So yeah, I realize that these things happen, but I also recognize that it's really an idea of who's not getting the money and who is getting the money. And when you see fucking assholes like Jeff Bezos riding their cock into outer space and then thanking all his workers and the people who bought that stuff for setting him up, like it's fucking disgusting because you have this guy fucking touting BLM and pride and all this shit while he treats his workers like shit. He doesn't pay anything in taxes, and then he fucking rides his cock into outer space and rubs it and comes all over us, fucking rubbing it in our faces. So I think that that we're facing more of a have and have not situation rather than a fucking bunch of people who hate black people and a bunch of and Mexicans and stuff. And again, I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist, but I'm saying that this shit is amplified, and because these people are protecting their own interests and protecting their wallet and keeping us busy fighting each other instead of fighting them and fucking questioning power and we're questioning ourselves instead of questioning the motherfuckers who's supposed to be working for us. So that's that, and that's the shit that I failed to convey.
I'm gonna be real with you. You actually conveyed all of those points. You did.
Oh, okay. I don't remember it. I felt terrible.
I want to just say, I have had so many of those conversations in my life that affected me just as deeply.
Yeah.
They were just all off cam. And then sometimes I would say some dumbass shit on the internet. My God, my first year of YouTube is reviewing hip hop as a white boy, middle class now. I come from poverty, and I went to a black high school, and I thought those were credentials, but I'm in Montreal. Nothing is credentials, okay? Nothing. And I went on the internet and talked my shit, and people put, this is before the YouTube censors on the comments. I got put through the ringer a few times. But I also got schooled by so many different people every time I tried to come into these conversations, and it got me questioning shit. A lot of shit, right? I'm a white rapper. Extra like weight on this question, right? Like, what does it all mean? So what does being an ally mean? What do all these things mean, right? First thing is privilege. I want to just touch that one up quick, because the reality is all white privilege is less anxiety in life. You have the time to think about things because you're not worried about dying. And that's something that I do not think most people really understand, and it took me the better part of a decade to come to that conclusion. But when you talk to women about their experiences at night walking around the streets, and this one I find is like an easier one, they fear rape, they fear men. I just watched in the local community group a bunch of women talk about the same two guys running around my neighborhood scaring the shit out of them. As a man, I've never felt that shit. I walk around, I'm not even like, I look like I'm stronger than I am kind of thing when I'm out and about. So like, never had that. As I understand it, if you're black and you see the 5-0s, the police, your experience is mad different than mine. Because, in black communities, I've heard that people are given police training, how to deal with police. Things that, imagine all of these extra factors. You go to work, now you got to speak politely. I found out recently that if you walk into corporate America and be dropping words with this kind of slang and be spitting in a way that ain't proper, motherfuckers be not giving you as much monies in situations. And that's a fact in Montreal, Quebec for myself. So like, what I'm saying is all these extra things that you have to think about because you're not the right societally accepted norms that are preached about on the internet add pressure onto your life that make you be unable to have the same level of common sense and time as a person who's not stressed. So my walk becomes philosophy about the universe. Other people's walks might just be, I'm trying to stay alive and get home. I hope I see my family when I get there. That's white privilege. I don't think people explain it like that, but that's all it is. That time you have, that stacks over a decade, coming up with business plans, proposals, all this shit, while other people is just trying to like stay alive and shit. With all that being said, you add in shit like redlining, where literally it affects literacy rates in education. So you have a bunch of white people on the internet judging a bunch of kids who were never given history books for not knowing shit, who were never taught the same math for being not able to keep up, who were never even given the same English books for being illiterate and unable to compose a sentence with the same grammar. That's privilege. So you start stacking all that shit up, and then the only people who ever say the words black on black crime all have my skin color for some reason. That's fucking weird, right? Nobody else says it.
I know a lot. I know of a lot of black people.
I mean, run the numbers, and it's going to end up.
But actually, the person in chat who even said black on black crime is
Bro, I guarantee you, and I would put my entire professional reputation, if you ran the numbers on this, 90% of the people use the term white.
I understand. And look, I'm not trying to fight that notion.
So it's like, so
I don't want to even say black on black
so
crime.
while you're like actually correct on everything you're saying, I'm also right on all the things I said. And sometimes by saying some of the things you put forward in that conversation, it diminishes everything I said, because the focus goes on to some shit that's like facts. Like, white people kill more white people. It's just normal. That shouldn't be part of the conversation. Or when you take the death of a George Floyd, the fact is, it's like who like you focused on the crime, bro. That's like, just for the fact, never do that. That's like a way to get clipped. Whether or not you fully agree with that, just as a media dude, man, just in this world, it's like, you need to understand that by saying that, like, bro, there's no context that it makes sense that the cops, whose job is supposed to be to enforce the laws, is killing people. Frankly, the whole police system's whack, right? Like, it just is. So by going and talking about the fact, the cop committed a crime at level 10 and the man committed a crime at level 0.3. Frankly, it was the smallest crime I've ever heard of. So, like, I didn't even counterfeit 20. Like, bro, I've done worse crime. Not saying what, but in my life, I've been caught shoplifting higher amounts. Okay, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not dead.
And he didn't deserve to die either.
So but when you mention it, it's like, why? That's what people are wondering, because the fact is, the whole conversation should be the police system's fucked up, and that is like, there's no reason to go to the other places if the goal is to create systemic change. Otherwise, so this is where I agree with you. I think the government has politicized race, but I think that the instrument they're doing it is coded language or racism. And a lot of people that believe that they're being allies are accidentally using a lot of coded racist language because it logically makes sense. But I've watched logic, because, man, I'm in a Montreal where there's a lot of conversations of multiple communities that I have access to. I have interviewed countless people that grew up in inner cities. Well, not countless. It's like 40, 50. But people who grew up in inner cities, both in Canada and across America. And you know what? It didn't matter where they grew up. The story there were way too many parallels, right? So it starts to show like, there might be some issues where it's having the side conversations that is a huger part of the problem, because it stops the people trying to tell their story from being able to properly tell their story. Because now we're focusing on some weird shit. Like when you're watching a Facebook debate and one man's is using logistical arguments to distract from the bigger message of the next man's. And that's how it ends up getting perceived. So you're never wrong with these points is the problem. So they are all legitimate points. But like, why are we talking about that when like there's way more relevant points to be focusing on? I believe that's what she was trying to convey to you in those moments.
Yeah, and you know what, that was conveyed, and I get that, and I'm all for that, and like there's that this is why I have these conversations, and that's why I'm so thankful that LG stuck it out, because a lot of times when you're in that position. And there is a philosophy where it's like you gotta protect your energy, and if someone doesn't agree with you, and you're just like get out, and that's part of like this whole argument too. Like people will just sort of be like, I can't talk to you because I'm not gonna, I'm not. It's not my job to teach you. It's not my job. It's not our job to teach you. Which that's fine, but how are we going to get past these road bumps that when I'm a logical person, okay? And so in this particular situation, saying George Floyd, it is true that if he would not have been in that position, he wouldn't have been murdered, okay? If he wouldn't have been passing 20s, he wouldn't have been murdered. I get that focusing on that is taken away from the larger issue. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't know, man.
Sorry,
it's just like... Bro, if that shit went down in my country, I'd fucking be flipping shit. Like, yo, how the cops be acting like that? Like, to me, that's where like it goes, you know?
And I agree absolutely that the cop reform is a huge thing. I absolutely agree. I was also sort of talking about defund the police as well, where you're seeing lots of crime sort of spring up in these cities that did implement some of these Black Lives Matter policies that they wanted, where they did defund the police, and
But
crime
who
did.
reports the crime statistics?
Okay, so now we're talking about misinformation. Then so what do we trust? What do we trust? We trust.
Well, the one people I don't trust is the stats from police departments. Is not a stat I've
Yeah,
ever
okay,
trusted in my life.
but then you can also look at like Princeton and Harvard's done things, and I'm
I
not.
do, dude, bro. I'm with you. I don't trust them either. I don't trust American institutions, my guy.
No,
Like it's
I,
so.
I don't trust most of it, but
Do
but
you know that
still.
the hold on? Did you know that the CDC, you're like fucking people that or whatever they do, block condom stats because of religious lobbyists? Your government really has bad statistics.
I
Like it's not just
understand
they
that. Yeah,
weeds
no.
a. You're like the only place with bad weed research because y'all made it illegal. Like,
Yeah,
you
I
know what
agree.
I'm saying?
I agree. I agree. But that's a huge problem, and that's a huge problem. And how do we get past
You
misinformation?
here's what you do. You
But
you
I do
you
want to make this
trust
point.
international sources and look at their research because lots of other
Okay.
countries have really good research.
Okay, so there's a lot of good research on American problems within these like specific cities and these specific policies. I mean, because we're talking about these
Well, you have
policies.
other examples to compare against. Yeah, like yo, go to Montreal, different government system, mad similar problems. Go to
Can,
Toronto, very
can I ask?
similar.
Can I ask what the majority race population is up in Montreal? What
Real split, but mostly white. Like
mostly?
a mostly white in Montreal. Well, it is definitely a lot more ethnically diverse than Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver. Are huge. A lot of
Yeah,
culture, everything, everything.
but
But like, it's
Canada
still
overall, what do you think? What would you say?
very similar split to the states.
Yeah, yeah.
Almost,
And
but
I'm just,
maybe a
I'm
little less
curious.
white.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious. I mean, because like you guys, I mean, do you guys have the
I
same
would
kind of
compare Montreal to New York and say we're like a shittier New York.
No, no, no. I'm just curious. I'm just curious because a lot of times people compare like, look at how like Scandinavian countries run their
Nah,
shit.
we have the same problems that you have with immigration, with
Yeah.
everything, and I
Right.
agree with where you're
And,
coming from. It's a terrible
yeah.
comparison. Motherfuckers over there be like, learn my language or get the fuck out, and nobody goes there.
And it's a
My
monoculture.
country is like,
Yeah.
hey, come to my
Come
country.
in, let's be prosperous together. But then there's also problems where cultures
Facts.
clash, and
However,
hard to
I,
deal
s-
with.
I've seen like the difference between like the government being welcoming to it, and I've watched my government get really fucking weird about it. And yo, it's way less good for everybody when your government gets fucking weird about it. That's the one thing I saw the difference of. But yo, all of our problems are mad similar. And the truth is, our socialism. I know the socialist elements of
I
Canada,
love
the
that. I
free
love.
healthcare, the
I think
like
that.
literally. I'm not gonna say we're the best at it, and I'm not gonna say whatever, but like we have shit like vans that go around and give out like needles to like fucking people for drugs and shit to make sure they clean, and like we had like COVID buses and like for the vaccines and shit, like and like yo, on the real, if I get hit by a car, it doesn't cost me anything. It's like, well, the
It's
ambulance will run me,
amazing.
but
I think no. I think that there is a cool balance up there that
but
you guys
like
are working.
when the government in the inner city, and this one I have a solution for, and there's a specific neighborhood in Montreal where they fucked this up and it got worse in. When the government invests in youth centers and stuff for kids to do in a neighborhood, and when they just do that one thing, just invest in youth centers and do it properly,
And that's what I'm all
everything
about.
goes down.
And that's the thing too.
When
It's
you
like
create like so there's one neighborhood in Montreal, basically it's called Little Burgundy. It was basically the English black part of town, and what they've done to this neighborhood to establish full control and to keep it segregated and reliant and as poor as possible is clipped all commerce out of the neighborhood and forcing people to have to almost take a bus just to go to a grocery store. So there's nothing in there, there's no youth centers in there, it's just residential wasteland, and that is what ends up happening in a lot of places. So
yeah,
what people
Flint,
need to
Michigan.
and when you
I
correct
love
that situation by creating opportunities for commerce and giving kids things to do, fuck it, just open studios, just youth center music studios, boom. They will stop committing other actions because they're fucking bored. Like, you come from a small place, you know what bored teenagers be like. We didn't get there yet because this got litty, but like So you understand that, and then imagine you're bored, but literally you can't even get a job at Wendy's. There is no Wendy's, and you can't go that far because maybe it's harmful for your life. Because if you ever look at gang maps, it could be like the grocery store 4 blocks away crosses 3 turfs, and 2 of those turfs you might die in. I don't know if you've ever done that exercise, but it's highly worth doing on a Google Map Street View to have perspective for what it is like to be in a neighborhood that is not like that. You know, like it's not it's not my experiences and shit. Add all those factors together, youth centers be fucking hella helpful because
No, I
it's
agree. Funding, and like that's what I was talking about when I was,
and make your prisons not private.
dude, fucking prison system here is just a new form of slavery.
13th Amendment.
Yeah, totally. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Most of what you're saying is very. It makes a lot of sense, and I think the problem is that I ran into with LG is that I didn't have a eloquent way of coming about it, because I think that if I would have came about it in a more, maybe a little bit more of a open. Maybe not. I don't know what I could have done differently, but I know I could have not
I
said
got
stupid
advice
things.
on that.
Yeah, I know I could have just kept my
So
mouth
I'm
shut.
in the position you're in a lot, my guy. What the fuck do I know about being a gangster? What the fuck do I know about crack dealers and shit? Honestly.
Nah,
And the truth of the matter is, if I fuck up one of those conversations in a real way, somebody might check me in real life, as in they live in my city. Not that they will, because I handle shit well. You know what we do? The biggest thing you can do as an ally to the cause is when somebody of color is telling their story, just let them tell their story, and at most paraphrase what they say.
yeah.
Just put it in different words.
And I think I
And
did that. I think I did let her talk, and I do think that there was moments where I probably interjected, but only because I did feel like I was cornered. But
you
I,
got a little
I know what
defensive.
you're saying, and I know that I know that I handled that whole situation wrong. First of all, I just, and I know that there is this privilege that goes along with just being even like, and I can say I'm Mexican all day long and talk about my Mexican heritage and shit, but walking down the street, fucking, I'm white. And there's no getting around that, and I that's fine. I'll
But
recognize
it's
that.
more okay. So here's another way to look at the
But
situation.
but no, but here, just so you know, like when someone starts, like again, like it wasn't a conversation at a point. So like she was operating off of adrenaline, and so was I, and
Yeah.
it went from a conversation to just being talked at, and I'm not trying to take away anything what she was saying, but like there was a point where emotion was the fuel of that fire, and it wasn't like the content of it. It was just,
Very
I gotta get
correct.
this point out. And so, and plus she also even said that she had, for the last 3 weeks she's been eating shit on the comic section, on the comment section in YouTube. So she's coming at it in a very emotional way too. So just to sort of come back to that point, let people talk. You can let people talk until you're blue in the face, but if you're not having a conversation, then it's not a conversation, and that's not. I'm
Sometimes
not.
it's also like
I get it. I get it. And you know what? I'm happy that she was able to get her point across. I'm really happy that we're able to come to a point. But I'm here to have a conversation, and that's it. That's the line. That's the line on my show. We're having a conversation, and
so
like
it's just a
and
matter
part,
of diplomacy, right?
sure. And
So
I think
your
I was
question
pretty
was, what could
diplomatic.
I do different? So
Hmm.
step one is let people talk. Let's say you don't
I
really
let
like
people
what they're
talk.
saying.
I let people talk, and it's not that I didn't like what she was saying. It's
So
just I
the
was bringing the
opposite side
points
of
that
it,
she didn't like. That is what I was saying. I brought up points that she didn't like, and that's when things went wrong. And that's
yes.
part of the problem as well, is that
So
we're not allowed to have these conversations, and as soon as someone crosses a line, which the lines are constantly being moved, it turns into this emotional back and forth, instead of where it did end up, to where it was both of us smiling and saying, hey, I'm glad we had this conversation, which I want to point out, that's where the conversation ended up.
yeah, big
but
facts.
but because that could have easily turned, again, she could have just signed off. But I allow people to come on. I want people to tell their truths, but I am gonna. The reason this whole place exists, that my show exists, is to let artists come on tell their story, and let's talk about it. Let's learn from each other. And I learned a really, really, really important, really huge thing, and that is beautiful. And maybe whatever I said to her, maybe it was deflected, and maybe it's gone and she don't care about me, and that's fine. And I absolutely adore her as an artist, and I think she's an awesome person, and we had a wonderful conversation until I started getting silly. But again, it's a conversation, and I let people talk, and
So
if
the other thing
deviates from a conversation, it turns into
is just the other thing you can really do is just avoid the word "I" in your counter defense, in your points. Sometimes what happens is, and this is what's been told to me. So I had this crazy experience. I insulted a trans person, and I said I'm sorry, and they're like, "Fuck your, I'm sorry. That's a terrible thing to say." And as a customer service person, I like literally have to like understand this kind of shit for like how to tell a person how to answer a person. So the problem with "I" as the start of your sentence is it makes it about yourself and the perception of somebody who's upset with you. So a better response than "I'm sorry," if you perform some kind of a microaggression, I believe is the term, is to say "thank you," because now it's about you and the fact that you shared about me. It's a little tick. So you can kind of like just tweak your language a bit and show like just enough to kind of accomplish the goals you want, because
that makes a lot of sense.
Your general points are "I," but you don't want to mimic the behavior of the ops in the eyes of the people that are feeling away. And once a person's feeling away, maybe they don't have all the common sense in the world in their judgment. But if you can just do a couple little tweaky poos on your delivery, like there's no reason to be like I'm whatever while she's describing some racist shit. Like, yeah, it's maybe not the right time.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, where there's points where I'm like,
you know what I mean?
I'm married to a black woman.
So when you say all of that, the first word is "I." So it just kind of like makes it sound like all you care about is how you look in this conversation. That's the perception that comes off to an audience.
It's gross. Personally, I hate that when I start bringing up my interracial relationship. I personally think it's fucking awful. And in that moment, I was just feeling like I needed to defend myself because, I did say some shit, but I also came across wrong. And I know what I was saying was like had a little validity, but I also knew what she was saying, had a lot of validity as well. So like there was just some miscommunication.
So I'm saying, man, the thank you move, you dropped the "yo, thank you."
On the
it's
other
so
side
much harder.
On the other side of that, Holden, if you made a misstep and you're apologizing and someone is like fuck your apology, fuck them. I'm sorry, but like you are trying to relate to somebody and they're trying to shut down a conversation, and I'm sorry. Like I'm sorry I made you feel that way. Like that was not my intent. And the fact that intentions no longer matter, it's like I'm sorry, but like I did not invite LG onto my show to make her feel awful, to make her feel like she had to defend her ideas and shit. It just happened to turn into this situation, and so I am truly sorry. And if someone wants to reject my
she understands that.
If someone wants to reject my apology because I said "I" at the beginning of it, then I'm not really interested in communicating anymore because they're not interested in communicating. I thanked her, by the way. I did thank her, and by the way, I'm not trying to defend my stupidity. I'm not.
Just saying these are
I
tricks.
get what you're saying, but like I also don't. I don't
really
care to
well.
talk to people who are that brittle in life.
Most of the world is that brittle in life, my guy.
Which is sad, so I guess I won't be talking to a lot of people.
I mean, I don't know about that. You're gonna talk. I mean, it's kind of what you do, but like
I do. But
these
but
times
are
really like weird, dude. Like
I agree, and that's the problem.
And a lot of us got fucked up. Like a lot of us just got the shit kicked out of us for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So basically, most of us be sad boy summering as much as we want a hot boy summer. And that's the real, but that's the like real truth of it, life right now. So sometimes we have these moments, and it's like everything you're saying might be completely right. I'm just saying, I just figure it's worth it to maybe I take a crisis aversion approach to this type of shit because frankly I get bored of certain conversations on repeat. Not to say this one, but like certain ones happened a lot in my life.
I'm starting to get bored of these race conversations myself. I am. It's starting to
And
turn
so
into sort of a
you can kind of just identify certain verbal triggers, I find.
yeah.
Tweak it a
And these
little
are all,
bit, and you never have it again. I haven't been yelled at by a person on some shit like this, no matter what, in years. On some little shit that I changed on how I talk to motherfuckers.
Right. And you're right. And you're right. And I know these things because I do this all the time. And like I go back and I replay that situation. It's like, how could I have approached this to where she didn't feel threatened and I wasn't coming off like the biggest piece of shit? And like there are ways to go about that to convey ideas and not turn it into the I just it was a sloppy situation. It was just I was just sloppy.
No,
man.
dude, it was a beautiful situation, just like this one, because motherfuckers need to see moments like that play out to a conclusion, as you pointed out.
And that's where I'm at. It's like if people
Bro,
can't pass the idea
man,
that
if people saw me, like if people saw me live on the internet 7 years ago, my guy, I'm canceled like a motherfucker for the dumbass shit. I actually went through my Facebook and deleted pretty much everything I ever posted. In some cases was that bad. And my attitudes and ideas once upon a time were kind of fucked up. And I think there's a lot of value in my YouTube channel is honestly a testament to a white dude getting woke, as the kids would say. That's what it is. It's me coming from a lot of attitudes where, dude, I empathize as a human. Dude, I empathize with everything you're saying. I've literally had that conversation you had and felt everything you've expressed to me on numerous occasions in my life. But then, I don't know, I read a bunch of books, I learned a lot of history, and I'm like, yo, at 1.5% of America, mostly concentrated in the South, and this is just recorded, was the Klan. And I'm like, yo, that's probably like 10% of people. At 10% of people in the 30s is the Klan. Shit, that's a fucking weird stat. That's real.
But also they do have long-term plans of infiltrating high places.
But then you gotta consider a lot of people that are alive right now are from that. Like that's not like far enough back. So it's like that's the kind of stuff that makes people maybe not be as hard as we want them to be. And I don't know that it's fair to have that. Like, yo, I'm soft as fuck, dude. I'm sensitive.
I understand that, and there's nothing. You're an artist, man. We're sensitive people.
I'm also Canadian, so like half of y'all's free speech shit. I'm like, bro, I don't even know what that means. We have like rules against hate speech.
Yeah,
that's what Jordan Peterson got famous for in America.
Is for sticking up for freedom of speech, and it's just it's never been a good case in when any society started clamping down on information. And
big
like
facts.
You can say Canada is still a pretty open country, and you can still
they just passed a lot of add some censorship that's really concerning that Canadians aren't paying attention to, but they're going to be allowed to throttle YouTube content to say like certain shit might not be Canadian enough. Fuck those guys. Like, and this is a real thing that happened, but again, people don't care about Canadian politics.
Control is clamping down. Well, no, and like I don't know if you heard about that. They're trying to start. The White House reached out and they want to start having like companies like Verizon, AT&T, fucking censoring misinformation within text messages and our SMS messaging. So like you'll be talking to your mom, right? And you fucking like you text her like, "Hey, just be careful with the Johnson & Johnson. I heard that in women over 50 that can cause blood clots." Delete. Or they put that CDC says blah 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 blah. Can you imagine if you're texting your mother because you're real concerned because this is a real concerning issue with Johnson & Johnson, which just got a label on it saying that it can cause blood clots in women over 50 and blah blah. It is a real issue, and I'm not trying to anti-vax or anything, but can you imagine you're concerned that you're trying to convey with your mother about a real situation is getting edited by fucking AT&T at the behest of our government? Like that's fucked up. That's really
we agree on that.
So I like this throttling of information is just a very, very dangerous thing.
I think the thing that is weird for me is in a lot of ways the free speech thing comes down to like words and not ideas. It comes down to like specific word choices. It's never like, yo, I have some wild ass ideas, dude. Okay, like pretty much half of my ideas expressed with different language could get me in some trouble. But like I happened to go, so what happened was about 5 years ago, I got my current boss. And man's broke down to me that if I ever want to make real money at work, diplomacy is important, and I'm going to have to learn how to express the same ideas really differently. So I read them 48 Laws of Power, Art of Seduction, Autumn shits. I fucking read Art of Wars. I read all this kind of stuff. And I realized that along the way, it's not really the ideas that are the problem. It's the delivery that's the problem. So freedom of speech is about freedom of ideas. I mean, you've always had censorship from your government. Advertisers can't just say what they want. Thus, there is a degree of censorship.
Liability laws.
And like, there is a clause within free speech called fighting words, upon which if somebody says enough fucking vile shit and you knock them the fuck out, that free speech isn't really protecting them of shit anymore because they're guilty of instigating a situation.
Freedom of speech is not free. That's the part that people fucking misconstrue.
So in a lot of ways, what's happening is actually democratic consequence, not government-induced consequence, and people are misconstruing the idea of free speech and being allowed to say what the fuck they want in public. And those two things are not the same. Like, yo,
absolutely.
Like, yo, you go on Facebook. Yo, I've seen this happen with the stand-up comedy scene in Montreal. So I use them as a scapegoat for this idea because you're not there.
Yeah,
Nobody's
you guys got fucking. There's a couple dudes who got real jail time, right, and real fines.
That was of one specific situation that was actually pretty wild, but is not really my point. But they use him as an example a lot because they're fucking idiots. But not anyone in particular. But what ends up happening, and I watch them all do this shit, is they go to clubs and they perform for stand-up comics. Now, the problem is when normal, regular people don't come and you just shape your craft for comics, you turn into Larry David. You don't turn into like a guy like Kevin Hart. So there's like a difference. Kevin Hart learned how to talk to like the world. And Larry David don't give a fuck what the world think. And these two guys are in different spheres of life and do different things. But a lot of people want to be Kevin Hart but speak like Larry David in them. Right? So there's a bit of a cognitive whatever. So then they hit Facebook land, they hit the internet, they say all their wild shit, and then people respond, and then they get like, blah, 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 Dave Chappelle said this. And it's like, bro, you're talking to Deborah, the mom. Like, what? Like, you're not in the comedy club. You're on Facebook. That's the world responding to you. None of these people is the government. These are human beings reacting to your opinion. And people be acting like somebody suppressing their shit when motherfuckers are like, report, this shit bothers me. Even that, it's still like your peers that had to put you in Facebook jail in the first place. The first time you went to Facebook jail, that was your peers. You pissed off people you know. That was not Facebook. Then Facebook put a target on your back, and that's why you go back to jail. But the first time was actually you managed to offend people, and that's why so many people just never went to Facebook jail. They just never shared shit that triggered enough people to fucking hit that flag is inappropriate button.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and you know, I agree. Like, I don't want people just saying whatever the fuck. I don't want people just, you know, saying the N-word all over the place. I don't want my son seeing that shit. But I do think there needs to be a place for that.
It's just but even Facebook made private groups for that until people took it way too far. But like, there are avenues that are just less public for people to do that, and then people choose to still do it all in public.
I think the problem is that Facebook and Twitter and Instagram has all become these monoliths of information, and so much has become dependent on it. So many people's businesses, so many people, like even like public services rely on Facebook, you know, and so it's sort of turned into a public square. And yeah, you can't go into the middle of Times Square with a megahorn and just saying, I hate, you know, blah, you know, X, and saying the worst kind of derogatory term you can think of. But there is sort of this, they do hold a monopoly on information that has started to become vital to us. And not only can you get banned and throttled and kicked off for saying things that might end up being true, but you know, like they go out of their way to they do actually go out of their way to throttle people's information, which has been pretty proven. And I get what you're saying, that if you're out there saying stupid stuff that you did get reported, but you know
Can we go back to the businesses though? Let's just talk about good versus bad business. Let's
okay,
say you obscene as fuck,
yeah.
right? You raunchy, you make porns. Do you
Hmm.
think that on your Facebook page you're putting full titties out, or are you doing a little like whatever, whatever? I've been watching these OnlyFans grinds, not because I actually care, but because I like marketing, and
Yeah,
these
it's
people know how
interesting.
to market,
I agree.
honestly.
Amaranth and Indie
And
Fox
then
were fucking awesome at this.
and I watched Amaranth on Twitch. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is she doing?
Yeah,
And
my
everything
wife got
about her
me into it.
channel was like art. But you know what she did? She understood where she was, and she never crossed the line. And so
Well,
what
until she
happens?
did.
Yeah, that's fine. But
Yeah.
like what I'm saying is like in general, it's the OnlyFans where you got that stuff. So
Mhm.
people are putting the OnlyFans content out on blast. It's bad business. People are going like, you don't, even if you want to make money on content, you don't put the juiciest shit out on blast. You gate that motherfucker,
Yeah.
right? You shouldn't be fucking inappropriate where grandmas are at. And yes, all of the grandmas be on Facebook. The average age demos on Facebook are old as shit because the kids is on the gram. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
I get it.
like,
Or
it's not
TikTok.
even. It's like you're on a platform for old people now, and you're mad that old people don't want it to become like. You know what I mean? Like when you really run it like that, it's
I
like,
get it. But then there's like real information that needs to get conveyed that gets throttled. And so where does the line draw? Because I think
well,
that there's inconsistencies. And just for instance, and this is getting thrown around a lot, but like the idea of the lab leak situation where you have like 10 months ago, if you said anything about lab leaks, if you put any kind of articles, anything, Facebook was banning people, shadow banning. There were, you know, people lost their entire livelihood because they were saying this thing. Fast forward 10 months later, now Fauci's out there saying that this is a real possibility. And now it's
well, your
okay to talk
the
about these
government
things.
changed.
Right. But you can see
That would
that,
be my answer to that.
yeah,
Honestly,
but
I'd
but
say
there.
that's
Okay,
legitimate.
but no, I wouldn't, because of Fauci's emails. You can trace this shit back. They have been thinking this. The information's been being suppressed by the WHO. The information's fucking being
I
controlled
don't
by the
know. I'm not
CDC.
really watching it that deep, but
Okay,
I'm
well, let
listening.
me just tell you, this is what's happening, and fucking, and so so what I'm saying is that it becomes dangerous, because if we could have known about this being a lab leak last year, we could have been working for the last 10 months to prevent the next fucking lab leak. But no, the information got destroyed. Now the fucking no one wants to talk about it. Everyone's trying to debunk it, and but yet they're still acknowledging that it's a real possibility. So what I'm saying is that it gets dangerous. Like, do you want another pandemic? Fuck no. Do you want to prevent it at any cost? Fuck yes. And they're getting in the way of it because fucking,
I
well,
have a
for whatever
question.
reason. I'm not
Like a
saying that the
no,
lab leak is true,
I have a
but
question about like something you just said there, because like I
sure.
haven't been following it because I honestly put this in my brain in the what the fuck can we do? It's in China category.
Right.
And so that was my honest answer is, so let's say we
Talk about
find
it.
out it's a lab leak. Let's say everybody's right. Okay, then what?
Then we stop defunding gain of function research, which we are about to dump $1.5 billion into doing more of. That Fauci
Sorry,
is
what
telling.
research?
Gain of function research is the research that they were doing in the Wuhan lab that led to the actual virus being created. Because what gain of function research is they go and they find viruses and these deadly bacteria, and they amplify it to 10,000 times so they can find the cure for the next pandemic. So what's basically being said is that this research that was partly funded by Americans, partly funded by Fauci, this Wuhan lab, the money fucking coming from a Fauci source fucking was in part possibly is what got us into this pandemic in the first place. Because I mean, this is well known now, but there was, you know, doctors and scientists were last year around October were showing signs of COVID out in the world. One of the researchers' wives died, from a COVID type symptom. So this is beyond like conspiracy theory type shit. This is like for real, like we're pushing forward these agendas that these fucking career political doctors and career researchers, their whole life research is on this shit. Their egos, there's money, there's notoriety behind all this shit. And lots and lots of money, billions of dollars is up for
Mm.
grabs for this. So yeah, they're fucking trying
Just
to
to add on to your money point, because it adds to your point. Why did Bill Gates privatize the vaccine?
because see now I don't know what his deal is, but that dude is
I mean,
fucking.
that to me, that would look like. I mean, I'm not really like a. We all microchipped my guy. This shit sends me an email of everywhere I went. It's creepy as fuck. But like the fact is, like, I was kind of like sketched out a bit by that because it
Yeah,
just means that, well, somebody has to make money on this shit, and I'm like, that's fucking weird. So I do believe there's some funny business going on
lots of
with
fun.
regards to everything related to this shit. Yeah,
But
for
that's what I'm
sure.
saying. That's the slippery slope about controlling information. It's who's making these decisions. Who made that decision in Facebook to say, "Oh, lab leak out, go," and fucking, it's who has the power to throttle this information. And I mean, these companies are just getting to a certain size that becoming undeniable, and they're inconsistent with their TOS rules. I mean,
I,
inconsistent with all their fucking policies. They pick and choose, and we already discussed how they fucking collude and talk to other other technology companies and governments and news agencies to create a narrative that they're trying to push. So, I mean, it's a little weird, right? It's weird.
Within that though, I think it's less deliberate and more a lot of opportunists did it, which actually makes me way more optimistic because then you can just learn the system and figure out how to use this shit for good. Because yo, there's when you really run history, like half the shit is random chance plus racism, and that's
Random shit.
honestly
Yeah,
like
there is
half
a
the
lot of
world.
stuff in there. Yeah.
But it's random chance and like a lot of other shit. But like usually it boils into those two ballparks of how shit got done. But like frankly, it would be like like look at Canada. Like you got a bunch of water. Luck, we got lucky. You know, like
Yeah, absolutely.
and so, like, if you're born somewhere else, less lucky. And I don't mean that. I am fucking ignorant enough to, like, say some shit like my country's the dopest, even though it's probably not. But, like,
Hey,
at the
man,
end of the
you should be
day,
proud.
like, I
You
feel
should be
like a
proud.
lot of people are, like, hella, like, I'm blessed to live in Canada, and I should be acknowledging that because
I'm
we do
blessed to
have
live in
good.
America. As fucked up as we are, I realize that, and but I'm very happy that I can go over to my tap water and get water without poisoning. I can't say that about Flint, which, by the way, I was saying some rude shit about Flint the other day on my podcast. I didn't mean it. I love Flint. I love the people, but Michigan is a corrupt fucking state, and corruption is what got them into where they're at, and it fucking sucks. It's not their fault, but
Man, when
but
you're
it,
looking at
I
your country, it's like your country's a corrupt country, and corruption's how it got to be where it's at. It was my assessment of
I
all of
mean,
it. But
I think there
what
was
do I know?
probably, I think there was probably good intentions at the beginning, even though that, even if they were slave owners who wrote the
Bro,
Constitution,
it's like it's
but
more
it was,
like there's no way to look at America as though slavery wasn't a cheat code that got them to catch up to
yeah,
Europe because that's all it was. And we can
absolutely.
go down. Yo, the whole shit's whack, right? And I blame. Let's be real. England was a little bit more of a. People don't put enough blame on England. Let's be
Yeah, they
real.
were the ones who taught. Where did we learn this shit from? Where did we learn
Like
imperialism?
people ain't throwing it around. There's just not enough hate going at Europe. I would argue, to be honest with you, if
UK,
we're
be
being
more
like real with
guilty.
it.
Feel more guilty,
I
you
mean, be more
UK.
aware, be more cognizant that we all actually did this shit, but that the
I
facts
didn't do any
is
of it.
collectively we've benefited off of it, and that's
Yeah,
facts. Like it's hard to
we
like.
have collectively benefited from it, but
Thus, it's
I
not that
didn't.
we contributed it to it. See, that's the thing. The I thing.
Mhm.
That's what you want to avoid when you're
Yeah.
talking to somebody who's like feeling away, who might like not
You're
like
right.
that.
You know what? Hold on. I do want to circle back and say that you're right. That there's nothing wrong with approaching things in more delicate fashions, and I absolutely agree with you. And as someone who interviews somebody, that's a very valuable tool in getting what you want instead of having conflict. and conflict can be entertaining to watch. I mean, I'm sure it was super cringy that section of the conversation, but
Cringy for reasons that it was more like reminding me of my past, honestly. So it felt like oof. I
yeah,
felt it like on a deeper level than you might expect.
no, and you know what? My wife had a lot to say about it afterwards, and you know what? She helped me come to some real conclusions and really solidifying where LG was coming from, and she, from her own experience, she was just like, yo, this is so everything that you said to me was already said, but like in a
It
way
is
more
what I can
fucking
give you.
in a way
That's
more
like
serious and direct way. But you're right. And as an interviewer, going about things in a more delicate way and really making an effort to connect and making an effort to relate. And you don't have to sacrifice your scruples or your integrity as an interviewer just by just by being a little bit more nice, being a little bit more respectful. And again, I'm not defending the way me and what I said on that interview, because I
nah,
already
man.
I fucked it up. I screwed the pooch on a lot of stuff. Um, but I
Sometimes like you
but
kind of
the
play the
most
role of a martyr to be the example for others, and it's a
exactly.
beautiful thing.
And here we are at the end of it, at the end of that conversation, able to smile and say, thanks for having me on, thanks for coming on, and go away peacefully, and being able to leave something behind that is going to teach somebody, because I guarantee anybody who listens to that podcast or who was watching it did learn something, and that's important, and especially on a platform like Twitch, which is a very, very pale platform,
Is it?
lacking in melanin. Yeah, I would say that Twitch is really, really pale. Lots of white people on Twitch, but
I have a disproportionate reality because 80% of the
no
people
offense,
I
Andy,
know
like,
on Twitch are like DJs of Caribbean descent because of how I got into Twitch. So my Twitch is very different than that actually. But
well, yeah, mine too. I have, I mean, like,
no, I mean it's just like I was like surprised that you said that, but then I had to think about it. I'm like, okay, no, that actually
bro,
makes
how
more
many?
sense.
I mean, but if
I'm
Asians, take up a lot of it, because there's a lot of Asian
I
gamers that
mean,
are
I
going
mean,
on.
that's not really where I was going with it. So yeah, one thing that I think
We
is
can
worth
break
just
down
bringing up.
stats, I guess. But no,
No,
what my point was, even bringing that up, is that on a platform like this, where people might not have that experience to these ideas, I think it's really important for that to exist on a platform like that. Because let's face it, a lot of people on Twitch are kind of sensitive, and like, if someone can see that two people can have a conversation where there was direct, there was definitely discourse, and but at the end of it, we were still able to communicate and smile and say, thank you, and show love to each other. I think that is an important, that's the biggest takeaway from that, is that I
actually,
learned something, yes, but the fact that anybody listening to that is gonna learn a huge
but
thing.
I feel like the even
It might
bigger
be
takeaway is that you're like acknowledged on the following stream that it affected you and you took it seriously. That was a huge takeaway. I didn't watch the stream, but Brian told me he said that. Um, and that you have taken it seriously, and even this conversation, I mean, it's not exactly what I had in mind, but sometimes you gotta like run with a moment and be like, this is actually a valuable like piece of content to have, because how often do I actually get to have this conversation in this much like, there's actually like tangibles that have nothing to do with me, but I have been gifted with a lot of nuance onto what made your guest angry and why she expressed the specific things she expressed, because I've had those things said to my face so many times and then they stopped, and I like, it's not even like I'm trying to flex, right? Like
I
I
get it.
think um like I sit there a lot and I listen to stories of people who remind me of where I come from. I went to Pakistan and like bro, like, a minimum wage is an old man with a shotgun at a mall. You think about your life a little different type thing, right? And that's some real shit in Lahore, Pakistan. Um, and like, I don't know, man. I realized that as a white dude in my life, and where I come from, my last name is Roy, which is a French last name. It's Roy, like, Patrick Roy, the hockey player, and all that shit. So
Right.
like, um, with that, I got like better opportunities in my life. And it's not even like fake. They like did a study and found like 90% of CEOs in Quebec have French last names, and like it shit's real where I'm from. So it's just to like know that in the back of your mind that, like, dude, at one point I was participating in the practice of pre-screening applicants via accent. So it's like when you've participated in the system because y'all thought you were doing the right thing it's like you start to like think and you're like, that's just me. Where I'm imagine when places, you know, like, and then it's like, damn, those are people's job opportunities on some dumb shit. And like I gotta live with that forever and ever and ever. It is what it is. You know, I'm not gonna say who and what and where and whatnot, but like I gotta live with that. And that's just me, my little micro contributions. And the problem with our lives is sometimes, like, I've seen people make jokes. Man, you go look at the jokes people make, bro. Oh my gosh, a lot of American humor is derived in white man good, everyone else is goofy. And I'm not like saying it to like talk shit. It's just I rewatch a lot of comedies with my like social justice lens. Because okay, fine, I'm a left-wing libertarian type. That's kind of where I lean, just for full biases. But I watch some of this shit and I'm like, yo, after learning about what women told me and stuff, that's not funny. After learning about consent, that's not funny. Animal House is kind of wild if you think about it.
Oh, bro, fucking even the early 2000s. If you watch anything from the early 2000s, they're dropping F-bombs, and I don't mean fuck. You know, they're dropping real rude shit. Like, me and my wife are just sitting there like, holy shit. Like, how did we not see that? Because, you know, early 2000s was me and my wife's upbringing. So we were inundated with that shit. So it's like we saw that every day, and it never even registered to us. And now we're sort of like, you know, as we look back in time, we can sort of step back and be like, wow, that is really fucked up. But
imagine like
the shitty part of me though, and the shitty part of my, not the shitty part, actually, there's no shitty parts of my wife. She is a golden angel. But, you know, she also laughs at some of the inappropriate shit too, because, you know what, there is some absurdity to it. And I get what you're saying. Like, the rape shit is not that funny at all, like that. But there are situations and some shit that gets inappropriate that's not acceptable anymore. But it can be funny. But I'm not trying to pick shit apart or name anything in particular. It's just I also see value in funny, and even if people are getting punched down on it sometimes, because as a fat guy and as a former fat guy, fat jokes to me are so funny. And I'm sorry, fat people who fucking get all sad about it, but fat jokes are funny. I'm fat. Sorry, I'm fat, and I still laugh at fat jokes. My bad. I think it's hilarious.
It's more like, for me, and I don't agree. Nobody agrees with me. I don't really laugh a lot. You may have noticed I'm not a huge laugher. In your chats, you may have seen the level of severity I take to everything.
You do, so, like, you do. No, and I appreciate that, actually.
But like, that's just, so everyone needs to take into account that I'm not funny by any conceivable metric of intent. Usually I'm funny because I'm aloof more than or like I spit facts in a way that people find fucking funny. Yeah. Bonnie's saying I'm a real hoot. I mean, but yo, people find me entertaining, and I'll take the knowledgeable. I mean, I know you said knowledge. I'm pretty knowledgeable, but I do laugh hearty when I laugh, when you can get me. But usually it's some stark, blunt truth shit that makes me laugh. That's the funniest shit in the world. When somebody says the shit that nobody says. That's what George Carlin did. That's the only thing, and he never punched down. And everybody holds him up as a candle to like the greatest motherfucker. Richard Pryor never punched down. Everybody holds him up as the greatest. Well, he never punched down. Holds him up as the greatest, or at least he evolved and stopped dropping M-bombs, whatever. And you know what? All the people that revere these people punch down. And I'm like, bro, that's like listening to Eminem and then like not even learning a damn thing about how he rhymes and just rapping like the worst rapper ever and saying, yo, but Eminem's my hero. I rap just like him. I'm like, no, you don't. You suck. And that's kind of like what I hear when I hear the intent behind a joke. Because if your joke is just to talk about front page Reddit news, chances are you're not saying anything. Whereas these people made observational comedy that was excellent satire of actual issues with the intent of bridging gaps and shit. So people read your intent, is I feel like what happens a lot in the world. And like most people know that like my intent is like curiosity. I say some dumb shit a lot. I forgot where I was going with this. I legitimately got distracted looking at Bonnie's face.
Yeah, that's all right. You're struck by your girl's beauty, man. There you go.
Happens. But like, anyway, completely forgot my point. But all I had to say, sometimes you just have to like accept that like the weird conversations happen so that people can learn from them, and sometimes we're the pawns in that.
Some things are funny to some people, and some things aren't funny to other people. Like you have a different sense of humor than I do.
Oh yeah, I'm not funny. Comedy, I remember now. Yo, most comedy that I see is derived in this intention to say that person's life is worse than mine, thus I feel better. And I find it weird. It looks almost like people use comedy the way drug addicts for dopamine releases. And that's my like really not funny critical analysis of most people's taste in comedy. It's derived from like the same shit that gets you likes on Facebook, and it's entirely like that person's life's worse than mine, so I can sleep better at night. And I'm like, that's some toxic shit to me. And I understand that I'm the weirdo here, but I don't feel differently with that
You're
every
not that
time.
weird. I mean, there's definitely like, I mean, like there's a lot of people who feel that way too. I mean, obviously, there's people out there who want these comedians.
Oh, to be fair, y'all can say what you want to say. I'd rather y'all say your jokes than I know who says what.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That's another part of speech that's very valuable, is that when you know what someone is where someone's coming from, then you know who to avoid, or who to reach out to, or who to just who to invite your home. But I don't know, man. Like the idea of comedy and jokes and stuff, like I'm of the school is like, if it's a joke, if it's a good joke and it's funny, then it's funny. I mean, if it's someone just saying like the N word, N bombing, just to be like shocking or something, like you have to be. That's the thing. You can say these fucking things that you're not supposed to say, but if you say it in a way that's just like not funny or stupid, then yeah, you should probably be canceled just because you fucking suck at.
No, nobody should be canceled. I feel like canceled is such
I'm just joking.
I know y'all are playing on that canceled thing. I saw you.
Dude, I love. Well, I hate cancel culture, but no, in the most serious way, it's like these comedy is there to alleviate and to alleviate the absurdity of life, and because life is so ridiculous and absurd that there has to be someone to relieve that fucking anxiety out there and say these things that might. The idea is, some of these people are saying things to make a point. Some people are just saying things to make you laugh. And the idea is to laugh. If it's a shitty joke, it's a shitty joke. And maybe they do need to apologize for it. But
I think what's happening is that a lot of people think a lot of those jokes are shitty jokes. And what the real debate is what's funny. But it's not government induced. It's that like a lot of people think, I've seen a lot of people make jokes that I'm like, that's a trash joke in my opinion. Again, I don't think I'm funny. So my opinion's trash. But sometimes I look at the intent, and an example would be like a left-wing person in Canada making fun of Republicans because they're stupid. And I'm like, if you really think about that joke, it's really kind of like ignorant on all levels. Like, it doesn't matter how you spin it. The whole reason... So it's like you can say a lot of hateful shit, but because you say it's about Republicans, that's like okay.
Right.
And they believe this is funny. And you know what? A lot of people who might hate Republicans may also think that that's really funny. But myself, as a person who cares just about the language, that's all I care about. I just look at the language of your joke and I think about it at like a literal level. That's why I'm not funny. I go, that joke is just all kinds of hate for a wide group of people that you don't know anything about. And that's how sometimes a lot of jokes feel to a lot of people. Now, is it funny? Yeah, it actually is to a lot of people, but it's also not funny to a lot of people. And I think that the comics also should be cognizant of that when they choose to make edgy humor, and not be so fucking butthurt when they choose to make edgy humor, because they chose to put the edgy humor into the world. When I make edgy shit, I deserve whatever comes from it. I made a Tom McDonald clickbait video. I get fucking Tom McDonald fans hating on me to this every fucking week. You can ask Bonnie. She sees the channel. I got one today, and I deleted a petty comment and wrote a less petty comment. But like, these motherfuckers are like constantly coming at me. But can I be mad? I call Tom McDonald clickbait. I deserve whatever the fuck I get from his fan base, whether or not it's rational. I knew what I was doing, and I did it because it's clickbait. I was copying Tom McDonald. I felt he was inspiration to me, this clickbait rapper motherfucker. I'm very happy to call him that because that's what he is.
How do we get in? How do we get in? You know, it's funny. It's funny that there are certain people though that you can make fun of, and it's okay. Like white people, like you can fucking call a white woman Karen all day long, and that's okay. And if you're offended, then fuck you.
Well,
you should be feeling white guilt.
People
and,
don't like a particular kind of person.
Yeah, but is it okay to marginalize this person as a particular person?
Yeah, but what is this? Let's look at the definition of this Karen term. A Karen is a person who, in particular, takes like that lady that recently was in that fucking store in New Jersey who, when the camera came out.
Awful people.
So we're talking about people who are particularly taking advantage of their whiteness to be racist, upon which, in that one context, if a person is being a Karen, given what a Karen is, or like a person who's abusing their fucking privilege to be extra white about that shit, I mean, I'm personally on board with it if it means that in those contexts. No, then yes, I'm all good with that shit.
I think it's hilarious. Personally, I think it's hilarious, and I'm not trying to fucking take away from it, but you are allowed to shit on white people in any context. Take the word Karen out of the situation.
Yeah, that's fair. I dunk on white people all day.
Coca-Cola is allowed to tell white people to stop being so white. Okay, so like...
Hold on. Is that a real thing? I think I heard something about that. I don't know about it.
Was that debunked?
No, I don't know. Did that happen?
I'm pretty sure.
Because I don't know anything about it, and if that's a thing, I'm mad curious what that even means.
Yeah, what is it? Fact check, Coca-Cola, Reuters. I don't trust any of these fact checkers. Fact checkers. An image of Coca-Cola can slogan "Try to be less white" was shared widely on social media, confusing audiences who believe it's authentic. The company confirmed no such product was produced, and according to experts, the image was likely.
That sounds kind of.
But there is this idea that
you're right.
You can sort of shit on white people, and white people need to be less Karen-y and less this and less that. And I think that that's creating even more a bigger division, a bigger divide, because now you're fucking making white people feel like white guilt is why we are even talking about race right now. If it wasn't for white people feeling guilty about fucking the shit they did in the past, we wouldn't be fucking here right now. A lot of these fucking terms, a lot of this shit comes from the university of elite white people who are talking about this shit.
What about the fact that all of us often have like racist relatives and shit that we never check? What about the fact that we all tolerate racism in our lives everywhere? Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. But yo, I seen some shit that I kept my mouth shut for because it would cost me my paycheck. That's a fact.
Of course.
And so that means in those moments where we choose to do that, we are now complicit to the current system, my guy.
Yeah, but like, how are you gonna?
I'm not saying I have solutions, but this is where it's like, we're kind of complicit to the damn system. All of us.
They've also created a system that puts us in a position to have to do that because your paycheck depends on it.
But then we just need to be at least cognizant of it, right? Like,
so why did the good people of Germany decide to fucking pick up arms and go fucking round up Jews? You know, like how did they convince everyone?
That is a loaded question.
I understand.
It's super similar shit to what Trump was doing, and mad similar to shit to what Quebec 2021 is doing. What Quebec 2021 is doing, really similar.
Shit is going on right now.
I'm just trying to point that out because, but like, kind of like, so yeah, not bringing it up. So here's the thing: I have zero white guilt because I try actively to stay like informed. I know that I've done like shit, but like, what guilt is a weird concept. Like, what are we guilty of? Why do white people feel guilty? It's a strange concept. I read this article that changed my whole fucking life on this. I
can say this by experience that white guilt makes black people uncomfortable. So
it does.
Throw that out there.
So I've actually I've talked to like
some good sources on that information.
So one time we had to write. Okay, so one time we tried to like get an email passed at work to like Black Lives Matter. So we brought this lady in, and she gave us a 30-minute lecture on how to word this motherfucker to not piss off black people, and said all kinds of shit. White guilt was basically the conversation. She said, nix anything that sounds like white guilt. And it goes back to that I thing. And then I had this, like, I read this article, and then I, like, confirmed it throughout the years. And it taught me about this cultural conversational rift that's happening between black and white folk. And it has to do with I versus we, these two words. Black folk, as they understand identity, and I'm not saying 100% everything. I'm saying the anecdotal evidence of the hundreds of folk I've tried to like connect with and learn from, blah, 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 bloop. Believe it, that the idea of identity is attached to a we concept of community and a collective. Whereas the honky version of this shit is an I thing in some fucking me, myself, and how I attach two things. It's almost like the opposite. The white concept of identity is honestly like the opposite of like the other concept of identity. So at a fundamental issue, the notion of saying I in this conversation becomes preposterous, which is why I focus so much on the word I don't do that. That is the one huge shit I've done, is because it takes yourself out of the conversation. You have to now formulate your opinion without talking about yourself, and it's actually way harder to do that, but it's way more effective. You'll notice very little did I say I, except to maybe relate to you 1-2 times. But I never said I to counter you. Unless it was like drastic story time over here.
If I was just gonna be like, so can we talk, like if I was gonna go back and replay that, is like, can we talk about the idea of black on black crime? And then that sort of lead us into the idea that black on black crime is a toxic term used.
But like preface the fuck out of it, my guy. Like walk in like it's a minefield, and you should approach it like that. Like I'd be like, yo, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time and energy to like fucking share your experience with me. Honestly, I appreciate it. I know that I might be coming off a little bit ignorant here and there, but my true intention is to learn and share for other people so that we can, you know, create more allies for the cause type thing. And you have to be mad sincere too. I am mad sincere as I say this shit. So you thank them right away because you care what they fucking have to say. And that tells them that, because you're taking, that's why I say thank yous is mad important, because that's what it communicates to other people, that like you give a shit what they think. And then you kind of ask, yeah, I want to understand why this makes people feel uncomfortable, because I don't understand it. And the truth is that's what's happening in a lot of cases, is you don't understand why that shit's a trigger.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what.
And if you get mad specific like that, people believe you more. I think this is the Holden guide to not getting fucked up on the internet.
It's like, first of all, maybe not even go there, but second of all, maybe
no, you can go there. No, I go there all the fucking time. I'm telling, this is how I survive it though. I just, first of all, it's like, yo, thank you for sharing with the rest of us that don't know this shit, your experiences, because it is a burden. And 9 times out of 10, they're dealing with some motherfucking shit, in my experience, where the other person isn't you. They act different. How many times have you seen hateful shit that gets said? If that person was dealing with hateful comments for a week on YouTube, and then you said anything that mimicked those comments, dude, you just walked into a minefield without knowing it by accident. And that's what I believe ended up happening based on what you said there.
Right. And you know, like, another reason why I felt so bad about that is because, you know, she did know that, I mean, like, I was dealing with a PR person, so, like, there was no direct contact between me and her. And this happens a lot, is like you talk to a PR person, and then by the time you talk to the guest is on, they have no idea what's going on because nothing was paid.
I went through that recently.
Paid properly.
That's facts.
And so, you know, I feel horrible that this person comes on my show to talk about her video, and then all of a sudden she feels like she's getting attacked, and there's this fucking white dude who's just talking nonsense at her, and she's been dealing with a bunch of shit for the last 3 weeks, and she has the stress of all this attention and all this, you know, like, because she's gotten over like 6 million plays, like, over TikTok, and mostly
definitely a shitty experience.
So she, well, yeah, but you know, it's a shitty experience.
Not to make you feel bad or anything, but just as you describe it, it's like, yeah, it's not the best.
No, and that's why I'm saying, like I take it very seriously, and like it affected me, and it still affects me, and like as of like Friday, it was still fucking with me, so like
Dude, that just
I'm
means that
still
you're like
thinking it over.
learning.
Exactly, and that's and back to this, like that's what I'm most thankful for is that we were able to learn, like I was able to learn and really have an idea and concept sink in, and just see the other side of things and not just think on this like very, because again I think on a very logical and rational level, and like that's why I like I'm just I
Well,
see these inconsistencies in what people are talking about, and to me I don't understand why that isn't part of the conversation, and I understand that that sometimes that can take away from the bigger picture, but these are still part of what makes up the bigger picture. These are all steps that lead to what's going on. So it's I feel like we can't ignore these facts. We have to sort of incorporate it into the conversation in a way that is, I don't know, doesn't hurt people's
awesome.
feelings. I don't know. I
Well,
don't know
it's
how to
just a
do it.
matter of so because you're describing effect and not cause. The effect is there is black on black crime, not the cause of shit is black on black crime. No, the effect is that crime happens in this neighborhood
Hmm.
at a higher rate than other neighborhoods.
Right, and then so
This is
what
the
is that?
effect.
What's leading? But what's leading to this
Lack of
happening?
youth center, lack of education, government
Funding, money.
racism,
Yeah,
gerrymandering, fucking redlining tactics over 80 years. Leo, the list
it
goes
goes on.
on, my guy.
Right,
Well
right, right.
documented shit. At the end of the day, it almost feels like going to the effect and focusing on that is kind of weird when the cause is, well, the government been kind of racist since time.
But and at the end of the day, we just want people to
Or
have better
like,
lives, right? We just want to elevate people's lives to be better. And like when you again when you look at it from the frame, and I get it. Again, I'm not trying to discredit any kind of like
nah,
I
my guy,
know
this
there's
is we're talking about. Get it out. We'll discuss it.
but I'm saying when I'm saying that it's more about the have and the have nots, and when you are looking at the socioeconomic side of it, it does seem like fucking if you look at it through the lens of like it's all about race, then why are all these white people killing each other, having the same crime issues in their low income communities as
Mm.
well? I mean,
Here's
shouldn't white people be at least, if it is something like
actually
completely
yes,
outside of
white
it?
people do need to be put on blast more, and they're not.
I agree. I agree that white people do need to put on blast, and I'm not saying we
I
don't,
mean,
but
it's
I think we need to
but
go about
no,
it in a
I'm
way.
saying your media and my media in our countries absolutely word things in ways to vilify black people and other people of colors in order to make people feel like black on black crime makes more sense to say because when it's a white person who commits the school shooting, it's a troubled kid. But when it's a black person pulling up and doing a drive-by, it's a gangster. But really, it's all the same shit. Motherfuckers be committing murder. And all this be jargon that is invented by the media in the first place. If we go back to Victorian true crime murder shit, all this language is just invented in a sense to manipulate us into having certain kinds of conversations and distract
Okay.
us a little bit. I
Okay.
call this shit smoke screen issues. Remember Pokemon and the
Yeah.
attack smoke screen and
Right.
how it would distract people and lower accuracy? I called some of this shit smoke screen issues. They exist to cause that effect.
Yeah. Most mass shootings happen in lower income communities all the time.
I mean,
Um.
bro, I mean, you guys got like fucking universities, schools, all kinds of
Uh-huh.
shit,
But
rich
but how?
neighborhoods, all kinds of
Okay.
shit.
Just
It's wild, man.
dig this, man. Dig this. About a month ago, in one weekend, there was 60 people died in Chicago from
Man,
violence, and mostly in the smaller part.
it's
So I'm
like
not saying let's focus on
putting.
that and take away from the fact that all this history, the scars of history,
Alright,
ended up
so let's
here.
go. But
How
like
we go
Chicago
forward
is.
now? How do we go forward
Well,
though? Like
white people have to like actually kind of go. Yeah, it's white people's fault that the people in Chicago have this situation. It's white people's fault. That's where it starts. When we don't feel guilty about it, and we move on from that point. That's where it actually starts. Because the
okay,
truth is, if
but
you want to run Chicago's history, my guy, it is one of the most well documented. Because
it's
they put
corrupt as
a
fuck.
hunt. No, but like you got to understand, like it's almost like if you're born black in a certain place, you're just given disadvantages in life. So white people have to acknowledge that's real without the buts. Just it's real. End
Right.
of sentence.
Okay, but would it be possible that if these neighborhoods that do have these large amount of minorities and including white people, if they did have the proper funding, would this fucking alleviate the
But how do they
problem?
get the proper funding, my guy? I'll tell you what happened in Montreal.
It's
Let me tell you what
well,
happened in
but it's
Montreal.
not by
In the
defunding the police, that's for sure, because we're
So what
seeing.
happened was is they clipped the neighborhoods, school fundings and shit to
Mhm.
fund the militarization of a police, which was a
Yeah,
privatized
and
move
that's
and it's mad
bullshit. And
dirty.
that's fucking
So
bullshit.
maybe taking the money they gave to the police in the first place by gutting the neighborhood, which elevated crime rates, and just shifting that back to the neighborhoods for the purposes they were there for. I'm saying there's one neighborhood in Montreal had youth centers back in 2010 and shit. What they did, they gutted it all because of tax money. Montreal's corrupt, my guy. In Montreal, oh my God, mafia level corrupt, my guy. Dude went to jails and shit, that type of shit. So
All
like,
states have corruption.
but what I'm saying is that neighborhood, the kids born there,
Mm.
as time went on, they took the money away and did shit like fund the police. So
Yeah.
sometimes defund the police is like take that money you took from the hood,
Mhm.
which created the criminals and the need for policing, and just put it back into the fucking youth centers and shit, which will decrease the amount of crime in the neighborhood in a tangible and direct way. So like in a sense, at a macroeconomic level, it actually saves everybody fucking money by doing that and maybe defunding the police a bit at an immediate cost of a crime rate.
For sure, but let's look at what really happened after Black Lives Matter left these cities and they did pass these policies. Is that crime skyrocketed and without the police? Look, and like I
Well,
see, and
COVID
I know the
happened.
point. I know
COVID
what.
happened and crime skyrocketed. It's a little different than like
Okay,
comparing any other year, dude. Like,
but when you have all these cops quitting and you have these certain sections that are just going unruled.
but crime went up in my city, and that didn't happen here. We just had more policing, and crime still went up, and there's more guns on the black market,
Right,
and there's a
and
lot of scary shit happening in places where the police did not get defunded, and where in fact they were further funded. So
I
crime
agree.
just went up 100% of places because
Yeah,
of
but
COVID.
but they're also seeing an increase in these cities that did have these movements, such as Portland, which is up 800% or 600%, such as Minnesota, such as New York City.
Yeah,
So,
but like
and
there's
these cities
also
were
like
hotbeds, right? So I'm not trying to even make this about a political thing. I'm
I
saying that
mean,
this makes up the whole. So we have to take these things into consideration because the cops do need to be defunded in a way that, which I was all about, is defund them and put them in the right resources. I'm
that
all
is
about
what the
that.
defund the police
But they
movement's
didn't do
about.
that. But that's the problem. It didn't happen.
Because
All that
when it
happened is
got to the
they
media, it got really distorted. In fact, there's two
and
things.
these cities
Even the
didn't
term, yeah,
implement
check
the way
it,
that way.
check a distortion. There's a Black Lives Matter that's an official pronoun, and
Mhm.
then there's a Black Lives Matter that is like a hashtag that's a whole separate thing. There are two separate things. One
Mhm.
is a philosophical ideal a lot of people attach to, and one is a particular organization that I couldn't tell you a fucking thing about. And everybody puts the two together as though the organization is a reflection of what most people are talking about. And it's things like that that really distort the conversation because people aren't actually even having that level of the conversation. So you actually have to specify Black Lives Matter, the organization, but not the overall cause, or else it's not even being a clear representation of what you're saying.
I'm just saying that they were there to reform police, right? Like that's BLM was there
But like,
to police violence, and what they accomplished was not. Is anything
but
better?
it
No,
wouldn't
nothing's
happen like
better.
right now. It would take like a generation for a lot of these things to get fixed. Is the problem? Is that
Yeah,
none
I
of this is
agree.
quick fixes. So you put a
I
youth
agree.
center in. It might take a year and a half just to
It's
open the
gonna take
motherfucker.
generations. Yeah, it's gonna take a
And then,
generation.
so guess what? That means the solution might mean a little bit of an immediate elevation in crime rate for the future to not have the same
But,
problems we
but
have.
but people in those cities are right now are like, how are we gonna get the crime under control?
But
Please help
literally,
us.
no, I
How are
don't
we
know.
gonna
I know
do
a
this?
lot of people in New York City. I don't think anybody I've ever heard say that shit.
Oh,
Nobody's saying
okay.
that shit.
Really, you're not hearing stories about fucking the crime rate going up and people
I mean,
fucking being scared to
it's
walk down the street and shit. Still, like that's
nah. I'm
not how
hearing
it
the
was
opposite.
before the.
I'm
Okay,
kind of hearing
okay.
like
I have
people.
family there, son. Like I
No, no,
know
no.
people
So
too.
here's what's up. There's
I
two
know
sides to
people
New
too.
York. Let me answer that one for real though. There's
Sure.
the old New York, the people who grew up there, and then there's the new New York. So there's
Yeah.
like people that are like
Rich
now
people
there.
playground.
So I know a lot of the older New York cats from my experiences over the last while. Talk like one of the dudes I'm working with lives in the Bronx. Like he's one of my partners in this shit. So I've like
Yeah.
learned a lot about a side of New York that loves it because they're able to just kind of experience what a different kind of New York because shit did shift.
Yeah,
And
it's way cooler
so,
when shit's on fire. That's way sweeter.
but what does that mean? Like
That was a
a
shitty joke.
crime rate is like a stat that is a reflection of laws that are made by people. So you can make like a racist law and then report on that stat and then say that the crime rate went up. Or you can over police certain areas and not police the white ones. I'm going to be blunt with that. Happens in Montreal too. And then your crime stats say what they say because
I'm just
you
look.
create the circumstances that create the statistics. So
I just think it's a
unfortunately,
poor
like,
execution is all I'm saying. Like fucking
but
all this
nobody's
shit
done
went
this
down.
before. It's new
I understand.
territory.
I understand, but it's still like people are suffering now, and that's what's happening now.
But like
And people
we're
are
like
seeing the worst of it now, and it hasn't gotten better.
it's
So
gonna
like,
get worse across your country.
okay, and that
And
sucks.
mine. Hold on. Let me include mine in that. Canada, I don't think we're better. I think we are the same as. I just want to
I,
put that out there,
you know what,
Canada.
man? I would just say that it would either be Canada or Australia if I had to pick
Ooh,
another country to live in.
yo, Canada. I don't know about Australia. They got animals that'll fuck you up.
Yeah,
Fucks
but
me
you
up.
know, like
No, man. They got spiders that are like.
it's a
Do you have spiders that
other
are that big where you're at? Is that why you're okay
yeah.
with this?
I get okay with what?
Spiders that are this big? Because I don't
Oh,
have
okay
that and
with
it
living
freaks
in
me out.
Australia. Yeah, we do have banana spiders that are
Oh
about
my
this
fucking
big.
god. Okay, that makes sense. That's why you're okay with Australia.
Well, I mean, I'm not okay with the animals. I'm not much of that, but like if you think about it as a safe place to be, I mean, it's a safer place to be than I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Midwest is a pretty safe place to be. Just thinking about like just geological space. You know, we're landlocked. We don't have a. You know, we can defend our whatever. You know what? Fuck this. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm done with
I
that.
honestly don't know if Australia is better or not. I watched one TV show from Australia recently. I realized how little I know about Australia, and I'm just like, it's a place that has animals that want to kill me, and it catches on fire a lot, and that
Yeah.
scares the shit out of me.
Well, the fires are a part of the circle of life there, but not the way they're happening now. I mean, you know.
Bro, Canada's on fire in a way that's not supposed to be happening.
I
It's
know,
fucking
I
scary.
know. But I mean, there is a natural part of the fires that create the plants and the new growth for next
But
season.
like, this is some next level shit, dude. We're
Right. This is
talking
like
the sky
this
went
is
gray and the sun went orange in Montreal because of fires hundreds of kilometers away, thousands of kilometers away, my guy. It was a little different the other
right.
day.
No, it isn't Australia still underneath the part where we are the where the ozone is depleted or is the ozone back? I don't know. I
I
don't know.
think we stopped some of the shit that made the ozone go away. I looked that up and I feel
Aquanet.
like it was like we fixed. Well, that was. I don't actually. I think the ozone is not where it was because we stopped. Because that's what happens. Humans do some dumb shit. And if we're smart, we stop doing the dumb shit. But lately, we're having a lot of trouble with the plastic. That one is a dumb shit that we all got to stop. I'm not
Look,
trying to judge
this
you.
right here. This is terrible. I mean, this is awful. I should be drinking
That's
out
why,
of that
like, I
metal
swear,
thing.
like, yo, honestly, it's not me. I'm gonna, like, front and say, like, I give a shit as much as I should. But I live with a girl who would fucking stab me if I didn't give a shit about the planet. I mean, like, literally fuck me up. Like, if I littered, oh my God, I'm gonna hear about it if I litter. Like, kind of pick that up. It gives me the fucking death stare. So, like, I'm just kind of conditioned to do it. But, like, yo, plastic's kind of whack. Like, actually fucking whack, you know? Yeah, COVID fucking reduced all the emissions and everything. Anyway, all I'm saying, man, is that, like, sometimes the best way to approach solutions is just to acknowledge other people's existences are real. So that way they don't
Yeah,
feel like your entire
and I
purpose
agree.
is to
I agree.
diminish that.
And I absolutely agree with you, Holden. And I do appreciate the fact that you're giving me pointers and stuff because The thing is that we all need to learn shit from people because, like, we gotta stop thinking that people are assuming people don't know shit. And I think Raina or someone told me, maybe it was Raina, is like you gotta just assume the person that you're dealing with is has something they can teach you, and not something like you. Like, because I can easily just dismiss a whole place and just make a shitty joke and not even think about what I'm saying and then just keep moving on. Like Flint yesterday, and this was like a point of contention with me and my wife. It was like a real point of contention. It was like, you just shit on Flint. We're about to go play there, and those people have been nothing but nice to us, and they're like really suffering, and they're really going through some shit. Like, COVID was not nice to Flint. Like, so many like young kids suicides happening. A lot of horrible stuff went down with COVID, and Flint's just eating a lot of shit, like from food desert to poisonous drinking water. It's just they lost their entire
Dude.
So me
You
just
know, Flint has been taking it up the ass since at least the 80s, because Michael Moore. I always get those two mixed up. His first fucking movie is about the the automobile industry in Flint being fucked up and how terrible the town is in like 89. So from 89 till today, at least, it's been taking the shit end of America's stick.
Used to be like one of the crowning jewels of Michigan, besides Detroit. Yeah, Roger and Me. That was a good documentary, and like you're right. It hasn't much changed, and I would argue it's gotten much worse. And the people there are so like just they're just hard. They're just hard people. Like like they faced a long time. There was about 5 or 6 years where there was no grocery store in a town of Flint, and the only place you can get groceries is the corner store. Getting pizza from a gas station.
Bro, that's what happened in that neighborhood. What you're describing is what I learned happened in a whole suburb. Well, to be fair, this suburb is bigger than Flint. I promise there's more people there than there are in Flint. But that's what I'm saying. It's in the middle of Montreal. None of us know this shit because Montreal's broken into, like, think of Montreal like a lot of little cities put together on an island, and it's called Montreal, rather than it actually being one big city. There's actually parts that are not city proper. So this one neighborhood, which is definitely in the ballpark of Flint's population size, whatever. The same thing happened there, but so they have to go to other parts of Montreal, take their money and put it into other neighborhoods that are being gentrified and shit. So it's wild. But what you're describing is a tactic that's used by governments to suppress certain neighborhoods and keep them poor. Because now to get healthy food, you have to travel beyond what you can afford.
Well, I feel like I feel like there are probably situations where people are, there's this little cabal of people who are like, let's fuck them over. But like, I really think it's like this idea. I think it's greed. I think it's mostly greed, like, because these politicians sell out to these lobbyists, and it happens on all level of government, especially in America. That like, because that's how they got into this water situation, is that they were supposed to have some way of having cheaper for everybody or something, and they opened this valve and they could never shut it again, and now they're sort of in this fucked up situation, which hundreds of cities across America actually suffer from some kind of the same situation where they can't drink their drinking water. By the way, I'm just going to add that in, just, go America. We're number one.
Canadian, check out the situation in our indigenous population and their drinking water.
So
probably your country too's indigenous population.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, we totally shit all over our fucking the indigenous peeps here, but I mean, this like, I don't know if it's like, I don't know if exactly if it's people sitting there planning this out with racist intent, or if it's just the way that capitalism unchecked sort of makes its way through government, and it just happens to be like that, because there's no way of denying that, yes, there used to be gerrymandering, yes, there's fucking redlining, yes, there's no way of denying any of that shit.
Do you know what?
And these policies do trickle down and affect people, but I think where we're at now is just we're stuck in a corrupt system that allows this kind of stuff to flourish.
So have you ever heard of this book? It's The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. As you can see, I'm about this far into it, which is more than halfway, so I feel I can speak a little bit on the racism that is in this book. It's racist, as in it's that systemic Africans are fucking heathens, but it's racist to the point where because he's in Scotland, America exists for the sole purpose of colonialization. Indigenous populations don't exist. A lot of shit gets said. Everything in life is measured by the value of corn. It's fascinating as fuck. But what's really weird is the way that the racism is just like fact. It's not checked. It's just this is what it is, and they say some blunt ass like shit where you're like eye-opening. But this is one of the most influential books on economic policy in America. That's why I chose to read this 1,250 page book about fucking corn. It's mostly about corn and value and exchange rates. And with that, and you got to keep in mind, man, I don't know if you ever read John Locke. Yeah, it's for real about corn. So the value of silver changes and the value of corn never... Dude, I cannot give it to you proper. It's like the guy's fucking convoluted in graphs. What you would see in a graph literally would take 20 pages for this motherfucker to explain. So like you appreciate PowerPoint in a whole new way. But basically corn is a universal constant in economies because of its role that it plays. It always takes the same amount to grow, blah, 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 the scarcities, whatever. And what really ends up changing is the value of gold and silver with relation to corn, not the value of corn. So everything kind of changes. And anyway, it's a lot of ratio shit. And hey, thanks for the follow, late bloomer. I'm not going to pretend like I fully understand the shit. I'm not reading this to be an economist. I'm reading it to see what it said. Okay. Like, but corn was used to measure the value of gold and silver at an international currency. It's almost like it was the corn standard before it was the gold standard. I fucking swear. Okay, like that's the way this guy is describing the fucking economical policy. But keep in mind, in the John Locke times 100 years before, the Bible is a legitimate argument in political philosophy. Anybody that ever read that 1600s philosophy shit is going to see how they go, well, in Genesis it says that. And I'm like, bro, this is political arguments. And these motherfuckers talk shit like they battle rappers. It's boring, but it's litty. This guy talks shit too. He's just shit talking all his peers the whole way through. For like the 2 sentences of shit talk, oh my God, it's like 100 pages of blah. All I have to say, those are the people that are studied in universities, not the black story. That's why nobody knew about Tesla and the millionaires and the Black Wall Street till like 5 years ago. So like when you start running the shit, you're like, nah, there's like so many layers to this onion to peel back that in a lot of ways, it's like maybe we should try not to preach certain narratives because they could be harmful. That's why I think the lady got so mad with you, is because she felt like you were by accident pushing certain narratives in your efforts to do wise. And because they become, like I said, smoke screens to like the more systemic issues, which when you run it back is that like, yo, since time the government's been kind of racist. Mm-hmm. And then how do we deal with that today? I don't know, but it probably starts with admitting that like, nobody needs to feel guilty because it's not helping anything. But the other side is we should probably like just start with acknowledging without all the other shit. Like, yeah, you're right. That's a valid experience you felt. Say that. That'll alleviate your whole conscience. You're not lying. That's a valid experience you felt. That sentence lets people say whatever they want. You're not confirming it. Your journalistic integrity doesn't get touched, and you'll hear a lot more stories.
Yeah, and then there's just always that side of me that's always just like fucking facts aren't feelings, or feelings aren't facts and stuff. So like, you know,
Ben Shapiro's not that good at arguing.
Well, I'm not, but that's not.
Sorry, you say that, and I just think Ben Shapiro because it's like his catchphrase.
That's a lot of people's catchphrase. It's a very but it's a valid thing, and there's lots of people who agree with that. So I mean,
facts. Do you know what the word fact means? It's a thing a lot of people agree on. So therefore, a fact isn't even a universal constant. It's actually a variable that's democratically reinforced. Thus, facts are always in flux. And if you know anything about numbers lie all the time because stats are simply just things that humans interpret. So without the interpretation of a stat, it's just nothing. It's a number on a page. The story is where the lie happens. People take those numbers and lie. I've seen me and next man's look at the same data sheet and watch the man's lie about his success while I'm seeing his failure in my face because I read the numbers different than him. So like the fact is, a lot of things are not really anything other than, like, you can say gravity is negative 9.8 meters per second, but that's just the best we understand it. We don't even know what the fuck that means. It's just a constant in the universe. Maybe we're wrong and we just measured it incorrectly. What if we're not actually based on carbon? You know what's fucking crazy? One more. This is apparently 90% like space and shit. Like it's mostly space because solid matter is atoms and atoms is mostly space. So how the fuck is this all space? You know what I mean? These are all facts. They're all fucking wonky. And they're all just shit we kind of just best understand with the limited understanding of our understandings. So what's a fact other than feelings?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, but there are certain things that are very measurable, and
Facts.
which we have the best idea of facts that we have at the time, and that's fine. But I think you're taking that idea and you're taking it to a little bit more
I'm
literal.
a rapper, my guy. I take every language used very literally.
I understand that. But when you're talking about because someone isn't. Because if someone is that fragile that we can't have these conversations, then that to me, because you are bringing up, these ideas and facts, then I think that's more what we're leaning on. That people need to sort of get over themselves and sort of look at it in a little bit.
I don't know. Nobody's fucking getting clipped by police in my family, my guy. But there's a memorial.
I got
There's a memorial a kilometer and a half. But there's like a memorial a kilometer and a half from my place, maybe 2 kilometers. That's a mile in your language, maybe a little more than a mile. And it's where the cops last shot a black kid in 2018 in my neighborhood, and they put up a little memorial. So I get to go by that and see that. And that's on the same street where up the street 5 years prior they shot another black kid. Both were mentally unstable, but there's no resources in the city because #English, whatever. Google language politics in Quebec is some fuckery if you speak English. The cops won't even talk to you in your language before they shoot you on purpose. So imagine that's an extra variable.
Yeah.
A real one. I just want to make it abundantly clear so that nobody thinks I'm making that shit up. It is like that with our police. They don't have to legally speak English to you as of 2021 when the mayor of Montreal made it legal for no government service to have to speak English to you in Montreal, a city of 4 million fucking people that has tourists. Okay? So imagine that's part of the realities and shit too. Yo, that's all real shit. Google that shit. Just Google it.
And what sucks about this is that if I say anything that doesn't go along with what you're saying, is that there's a side of people who would be like, well, then this guy's an absolute racist piece of shit.
Nah, you just have to acknowledge it.
I'm totally willing to acknowledge it, and I'm totally here for it, and I don't want to be that guy who's like black on black crime and fucking George Floyd was a criminal.
Yo, hold up 1 second, my guy. Late bloomers up in Toronto and you never heard that shit, my guy? Bro, you've got to look at what the fuck is happening in Montreal. Because, here's what happens. Quick tangent. Montreal's like, fuck the Maple Leafs. I'm not really a Habs fan, so I'm very happy to make fun of Habs fans. We're so cool. And the whole city thinks it's cool. And then Toronto's like, y'all a bunch of assholes, eh? And I'm like, actually, you're right. Montreal, y'all a bunch of assholes, right? Anyway, so nobody gives a fuck about it. Plus, Ontario politics vilify Quebec politics because Trudeau gives Quebec way more money than it should get per person, per blah, blah, blah. And the rest of Canada's fucking salty, so ain't nobody give a shit about Quebec unless you live in Quebec. And then nobody in your country even gives a fuck about Canada. So let alone a place that doesn't barely have English news. So it's all kinds of fuckery up in my place. And it's the same shit. And we're actually the better version, apparently.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, so, and there's counties.
Sorry, I just had to respond to the fellow Canadian.
Yeah, no, that's
dude. 14% of Quebec is English, and that's all in Montreal. So if Quebec's 8 million people, that works out to being, I don't know, approximately 1 million people. So that you can argue is approximately 1 in 4 people in the Montreal area of the island is about English. And so the way that the electoral map works out. Majority governments happen because of rural Quebec. And so the majority government overrides the municipal government. and they can just enforce language politics. And anyway, it's really convoluted. But over the last like 6-7 years, it's gotten really fucking scary bad. And instead of giving a shit, nobody cares about it. Yo, this is a criticism of my music scene, and I'm criticizing myself as heavily as everyone else. We did nothing to rap about this shit. What's wrong with us all? My gosh, what a waste. So now I'm trying to make that awareness of a real thing that's happening in my place. Because, so as a person, I guess, who's kind of like watching my rights get suppressed and being voiceless and shit, it's like if you were to then be like, but what about the fact that 84% of people, I'd be to knock you out. I'd be like, fuck you. I don't give a shit what you have to say after this moment, because frankly, you're not hearing the fact that my mom might go to the hospital and not be able to understand the doctor, and that's legal. And it wasn't legal last year, but it's legal this year. So when that kind of stuff happens because you have no political power because of a system that's corrupt, you kind of start going, I know, but I need you to acknowledge my plight is real so that other people acknowledge my plight is real, and we can create the momentum to create political change. Because like 51 or 52% of America's Caucasian. Let's be real, without the Caucasians, ain't nothing changing. So how do you even get to the part where people are willing to listen if everybody's coming back at you with the but this, but that, but this? And I know I got really passionate, but we tapped into language politics in my home, and I guess it really relates heavy to other people's struggles because it's like a fucking real thing, man. I can't register behind that suit in Quebec. I will have to come up with a French name to register my company. I can't call it behind that suit. It will be publicly facing behind that suit, but its legal name will be some fucking bullshit for the sake of tax.
Yeah.
And that's weird, right?
Yeah, that is real weird. And again, I see that. And then I see
Hold up, Dularis, it's not legally required no more. It's just not legally required. As I understand the law, I might be wrong about the cops, but definitely not at the hospitals and shit. Definitely not at the government. It's not required. That doesn't mean they won't provide it. It means they have the right to not speak English in downtown English. Like you could be in the English part of Montreal and it's okay for you to not. You know what I mean? That's what the law says. So how it plays out, I mean, who knows? Maybe people have common sense. But they also made it so that it's harder for French kids to go to English schools. Now, you know why they do that? Because then they control the flow of information to the French majority and make it harder for them to get exposed to English on some literal manipulation of a system to make it so that there's divisiveness and shit. And anybody in Canada knows this is happening here. They all heard about the Bill 101s and shit, but it's actually gotten weirder. So we had a Pauline Marois in 2014. We kicked her out. The next party got in. For 5 years, it was good. They got out. The next people got in and just didn't say the key word of separation and then pulled off all the fucking weird-ass fascist weird shit that my province does that's suppressing like my identity as an Anglophone in my city, which is why being an English Montreal rapper, an English media source in my city has become a huge narrative in my life. Like I think we're even going to do a fucking press run for a shirt that just says support local English media, because then it's all of us.
Yeah, I think supporting alternative media in general is
I mean, sorry, I got a little sidetracked. To bring it back home, it's like everybody that you're talking to that gets that passionate has their version of that going on. And so when you counter it with, I guess, shit that's weird in the eyes of the person you're talking to, they feel away.
Yeah.
Like they're attacked personally.
And fair enough. I'll sit here and acknowledge all that shit. That's fine. But I still have... Like, I still have to fucking, like, it's still just, it gnaws at me. Like, I still have to, like, understand more. Like, I still just, I'm still, I'm totally down and to be this. It's just,
Mike, you're crushing this, man. You're handling this conversation like a champ.
I don't think that I will, I'm not going to change who I am, is what I'm saying, because I am going to challenge ideas that I don't necessarily see the full picture unless I see the full picture. And I understand that that can be icky.
Let's can we look at the sentence you just said? So
Sure.
As a language guy, instead of challenging the ideas, seek to better understand the opposing viewpoint.
But okay, great.
But if you say the words differently to yourself, you'll act differently in real life, and you don't actually have to change who you are. You're just doing it's like saying I am as a self-affirmation rather than I can, which is weak sauce. This is actually just like if you read The Secret and Eat, Pray, Love and all that shit, it's what those books teach you all about visualization and language use. And it's like, I mean, it's the shit I do for myself. So maybe y'all don't like it. It's Holden
I no,
tips.
but you're absolutely right, because the one thing that I've realized in my life was, as soon as I started looking at things from more of an optimist type of viewpoint, things got much better for me. I was very pessimistic. I was very like, oh, I just suck. I'm this, I'm that. Until it took someone actually being like, hey, you need to, my wife and many other people, but like mostly my wife is like, hey, you got to stop talking like this, because that influences the way that it. So I absolutely agree with you that the more that you sort of practicing this kind of way of talking, that's not. But then on the other side of me, I just am like, I have to be able to fucking. I, I know I'm saying I a lot, but the
It's
fact is
okay.
that
That's
I
what we,
feel like that
this time you're the subject, right?
I'm going, even if I do understand an idea, if there's something that doesn't make sense for me, I'm still going to go for that. But you're right, there is a better way to get there. But the problem is that people are so afraid to even bring these ideas up, even if they do it in the most gentle and most like lubed up, perfectly lubed KY situation. uh, People won't even bring it up, and I think that that's the problem, is that we do need to sort of incorporate these ideas and validate these feelings, and validate these horrible atrocities that have happened. Again, I'm not denying the fact that there's not a bunch of racist assholes who are in high positions who do have an agenda. I do think that there are people out there that exist like that. I think that but I also think that this situation has turned us against each other, and has made it almost impossible to even talk to each other about it. And I also think that it's protecting people's interest who enjoy the power that they have, and they want to keep it that way.
So
And
if it
so it's very
counts,
sure.
Mike, if it counts, from what I understand, in all communities, there's people having very parallel conversations to the ones we're having
Mhm.
internally. So I think you're right. It's a pretty universal thing, but I think common decency is what we all really mean to talk about when we talk about common sense. And what really disappeared wasn't common sense, because that never existed. That never made sense. Everybody's common sense is based off of where the fuck they're from. So like I don't care about snakes. I'm sure somebody else's common sense thinks about snakes. You know what I mean? Or big spiders. Never thought about them. You did, right? Common sense is not common. But common decency is what I think we all should be saying and talking about more. And that's where it's just like some consideration. So it's like, somebody banned the word hate from chat. That's a strong thing. But hate is a strong word. I don't
Right.
like to use the word hate very often. I often say shit like dislike or blah blah
My
blah blah
mom, my
because
mom taught me that. My mom always says, "Don't hate. Don't say hate. Say I strongly dislike." And
like
leave it at that, because it's not worth your time or energy to put into a feeling like hate.
at the same time, some people really do hate people because their circumstances put them in a place where their hate has a lot more legitimacy than other people's hate. If you were to ask Holden's opinion, some people's experiences, and they're like, and so I fucking hate this group of people. I know I shouldn't, but come the fuck on. And then I talk to some other people, and I'm like, oof, what you're talking about, I'm seeing in real life. I talked to a friend the other day in real life. He's a black male, approximately my age, and he saw the tiniest white lady. And without being cognizant of it, the pitch of his voice shifted. It went up a whole octave. Why would a man do that? Why does a man raise the voice? Because he wants to convey a less threatening position.
Mm.
Because he saw a tiny white lady, and at a subconscious level, and I asked him about it. He wasn't aware that it happened, and I'd never seen it before because I was never paying attention in my life. And I'm certain if you start looking for it, you're like, yo, hold the fuck up. So this black dude saw a little white lady who wanted to give him a gift, and his entire fucking tone of voice went up out of this subconscious fear of a little old lady because of what she might do. And I'm like, damn, that's some like shit where if that guy wants to have some hate in his heart, that I'm not saying it's right, but that don't happen to me where that got inbred into my subconscious behaviors to do. Think about that. That's a subconscious reaction to a circumstance. It's not even cognizant. Imagine having to change the pitch of your voice when you encountered a group of people because you had to be less threatening. maybe your feelings of resentment might be a little different.
Yeah, and to that I would say there's a lot of people that change their demeanor to fit a narrative, to fit a specific type of behavior that you have to fit. I mean, there's tons of people who are like, fucking, and I get what you're saying, and I'm not trying to dismiss any of that shit.
I'm
And
just
I
mad
know
into
I'm
the
doing the
empathy
thing.
shit. No, you're
I know
processing. You're
I'm doing the
processing.
thing that you were telling me to acknowledge here, where I just say to that I would
Yeah,
say
but
that there's plenty of other people who
this is
change.
an okay time for that. This is what this conversation is.
Right, and so there's always going to be that part of my brain that works in that manner, and I don't think that that's a toxic way of thinking. I think it's a way of thinking that fucking is that I discern information. This is how I discern information. It's like, okay, if this is happening, then if this is happening, I need to. Why is this happening? And you know, doing that in a fucking more you know, congenial and nice way. Is congenial the right word? I don't know if that's the right
I think
word.
so. But imagine,
Doing
I
it in a
think,
better way, I think is the ultimate achievement. Is like, because you can have questions and you should be able to ask questions, but I don't mind the idea of
yo,
decency.
let's think
You're
about
right.
that filter.
Decency
Maybe
is not
other
that.
people are
Not
going,
what I'm saying.
I had to put this filter on my whole life, and we're asking you to put a filter on, and everybody's getting mad to put a filter on. And that's an interesting flex that people could say back to us. That would be very fair, because mostly people are mad that they have to choose different words. That's honestly, no, again, I absolutely will take on any idea, Mike. There is no conversation I won't have publicly live on wax. So at least there's a few people on earth that will do that.
I would like to say that there are conversations I will not have on my show.
I mean, I might not talk about some of my personal history. Fair enough, but like as far as the general nature of free speech ideas, like there's not a conversation I want to.
Yeah, no, besides the personal stuff, but like, I mean, like if someone comes in hot, you know, obviously, and I know you're the same
Well,
way.
just to respond to
Doing it hot.
Dularis, it's what we get paid to do at work. People do that more often than you think, more to fit in. I get paid to fit in as part of my job, and at a certain salary, it's like half your job is to be like the corporate culture. It's to behave and to think, and that's what the bigger salaries are all about, is to be an advocate for a culture you might not necessarily believe in. So part of my job is to take the executive ideals and beliefs and communicate it to my subordinates in a way where it's like, this is what it is. This is what we do. It doesn't matter what Holden believes in those moments. So I completely understand what Dularis is saying, but I just felt it was like worth saying that I believe in a lot of ways, for the sake of these kinds of conversations, people are saying maybe we all need to have a little more of that corporate filter. How we approach them, because you still got to have the ideas, but maybe the delivery can be adapted.
Right. Because suppressing ideas, and it doesn't make ideas go away. It doesn't, just because you're forcing people in to speak a certain way, doesn't mean that these other questions and ideas are going to go anywhere. And in fact, it's easy to argue that it pushes these ideas into extremist situations. So not talking about it, just like not talking about like a relationship where two people are not talking about the problems that are occurring between them is toxic for that relationship. It's the same as in our social setting. It's like not talking about these things and not being able to talk about these things is not helping anybody, but having a little bit of mindfulness is what we're really talking about. Having a little bit of having a little bit of fucking spatial awareness is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to be like, well, hold on, is what I'm about to say, is that supposed to, and now that's a form of self-censorship, but I think it's a way of self-censorship that probably needs to go on, so we're not constantly stepping on people's toes.
Yeah. That's what customer service is all about, my guy.
And I just feel like at this point, like, you know, I don't mind that common decency thing as long as the respect is shown back. And the problem is like when you show the respect and you do the work, and again,
Mike, I promise if you follow Holden's tip, keep in mind, I'm gonna tell you what I do for a living. Yeah. For the last 11 years, I've worked customer service. I started in a call center, and now I'm the guy writing policies on how motherfuckers deal with social media escalations. So here's Holden's rules to apologies. It's all based on how to have sex after you piss her off. First, you listen. You hear what whatever the fucking person has to say. Then you acknowledge shit very directly and specifically. And then you don't ever have problems because you proved you listened in the first place. That's what an empathy statement for is in like customer service. So it's a statement where you would basically listen to it and go, so you say, you'll notice I do it sometimes in the interview. You'll say some shit and I summarize and I recap it and I throw it back. Why? It makes you establish trust that I take what you say seriously. I let you finish, blah, 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 blah. You've a couple of times like, let me finish. And I'm like, you know what? This is important to Mike. I'm going to make sure an extra effort to make sure he can finish his thoughts. And you watched after that, I cut myself off at least 3 times. And I let you finish without you needing to say it to me, which gives you a sense of feelings. And basically what other people want is that level of self-awareness and how their actions treat other people, which I think is what common decency is about. And like if you're at work and a boss is telling you to do it, like we all do it. But in like real life, with strangers, the same context where normally we're at work and that's the only time we meet strangers, but we go to our real life and it's like we just forget the rules that we got. You got told this is how you treat people at work in a lot of cases. This is the rules to etiquette in our culture as defined by customer service, because that's the only place we really often do these interactions. And then it's like we just throw it out the fucking window sometimes. And I'm like, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should act like in public is like at work more than in public is just, I was smoking a joint in the park today, and these bike cops from the bus cops, not the real cops, we have bus cops too, told me it's a $600 ticket for smoking a joint in the park and there's kids and shit. Because legal, you said legalization in your shit. Well, it's legal. Legalization doesn't mean you're free to smoke weed where you want.
Right.
So, and I'm just like, say word, like that's a real thing too, right? It doesn't matter what I want. There's kids here. Maybe it's not the right place for me to smoke my pot kind of thing. And it's like, I had to admit the cops had a fairer point than I did in that moment as I looked around and saw kids playing baseball behind me. And I'm like, that's why they came over. If I was smoking this joint and there were no kids in the park, these cops would not have bothered me. I wasn't using my common sense of Montreal's awareness of weed rules. I was applying bad weed rules to my life, and I got a little slap for it. So, like, sometimes it really is just the spatial awareness of the read the room mentality. And oftentimes, if you go back to comedy, motherfuckers are really just saying read the room. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there was a phenomenon that has diminished of this group of fucking extremists that basically clipped each other on snitching that caused some shit on Twitter. On Twitter. Keep in mind what I said, not the world. It was always Twitter, a place where 90% of the people lurk and 10% of the people talk. Right. And 10% of a group of millions of people were able to create this myth of cancel culture that anecdotally hits a statistical... The amount of people that have been canceled is so statistically small that you would ignore it for any other reasonable risk, like driving.
Yeah. Or vaccines.
Yeah,
or experimental FDA unapproved vaccines.
I don't know about that shit. I know that in Canada it was like, go get vaccinated or you can't travel. And I said, I make music.
I'm here.
I might want to go to the States.
Yeah.
It was that deep. I had no choice. I can't go to your country if an opportunity arises because I can't afford that weak quarantine poor people tax they put on the poor people. That's what I call it. Because if you're rich, you can afford to live in a room for a week.
Yeah, you can do all that. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, everything is made for the rich's comfortability and.
I don't remember what you're saying to what did they say in en français. I kind of was in the middle of that, not knowing that comment popped up. So if you ask it more specifically, I'm sure you'll trigger my answer. I'm a guy that gets triggered into answering so much. This Ismail guy, Ismail in the chat, he knows how to trigger me, and sometimes he just gets me ranting, and I'm like, fucking Ismail knows me too well.
Like a good trigger, like a good trigger, or like a bad trigger.
Well, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to talk about this, and he'll like ask me 3 questions in a row, and he knows exactly what the fuck he's doing, and I'm like, this motherfucker, and then I'm ranting for 5-10 minutes, and I'm like, why am I doing this? And he's like, haha, I am entertained. And I'm like, fair enough.
He did what he accomplished. They did what they accomplished.
Oh, the cop started in French and then said, oh, you speak English, and then fucking let me go with it. But honestly, I wasn't thinking quick. I should have responded in French. It would have been simpler. I could have gotten in more trouble answering in English. But they're also in a very a very like English neighborhood, so they're cognizant of who the fuck there lives there.
What do you speak French fluently?
Oh yeah, very. I'm functionally bilingual. That's
Oh,
why when I was talking French in your chat the other day, that wasn't Google Translate. I was just talking French in your chat. I was having fun
well,
with myself.
I figured, but I just you never know. I wish I could speak two languages. I feel
If
like
you
it,
talk to anybody that is a serious professional in Quebec, they speak French. You don't have a choice.
yeah, I bet.
It's
Man.
not. There's no option. Like, I mean, yeah, there's people that could probably make money in English, but if they have a job in Quebec and ever want to get past a certain pay grade, it's mandatory that you speak French.
I'm with you, Bonnie. Fucking fuck the man.
Honestly, I'm not gonna be sitting there illegally smoking a joint in
I
the park
know.
and then
Listen,
fucking piss them off on some language shit because
I,
that's how you end up with a $700 ticket.
or dead.
No,
Whatever.
that's not gonna happen to me. It's not.
Dude, the fucking white people get shot by cops too. Like,
Bro, it's not gonna happen to me. It's not gonna happen to me in Montreal. It's
Okay.
really not. Like, there's no way
Okay.
they're gonna shoot me the way I look and everything about that shit, my guy. No, it doesn't happen to
Okay.
people like me in my
Yeah.
city like that.
Okay. It happens
Maybe.
here. There's a lot
So
of
it
white
happens in other cities for sure. In my
Mhm.
city, I promise you, there's zero fear in my mind that I will ever get shot by the police. I don't
Wait,
even think I'm
do
gonna
they
get
carry
harassed
guns?
heavy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they
you
do.
They do.
They definitely do. However,
That's
in
you.
other neighborhoods, and if my skin color is not, bro, I got pulled over one time. My headlight was out, right? Smashed headlight. That's a 48-hour warning in Montreal is the normal rules. I'm missing a lens in my glasses. I lose my license if, in theory, and I'm high as a kite and it's very obvious in my eyes. I pulled in and I was like, I'm just a little student. And they fucking let me off without the 48-hour warning. I got pulled over like 3 times that week. They saw it on the file. I told my black friends about that and they told me their versions of how that would have went down. And they're all right. All of them. And it's especially if you're English. Oh my gosh, dude, it's like an extra affront. That's where I might have some issues if I ever get a little cocky in the wrong part of the province, not in Montreal. Other parts of the province, I would be very French. Very French.
That's interesting. Now that's a whole set of issues that I just don't have to. I mean, in San Diego, when I live in San Diego, we're so close to the border that, professionals usually did know Spanish and English because, the border's right fucking there. And San Diego is a super hotbed for, immigration and people constantly going over the border, for work and shit. So, it makes sense. It makes sense for these international hubs that, the more professional you have to be, but I can see how that can be a language thing. But I didn't really see it in San Diego, but like if you're a cop and you're dealing with someone who only speaks Spanish and you could only speak English, then you can obviously see the problems there. But
Yo,
and it's
bro.
not anybody's fault.
Okay, so 84% of cops in Montreal don't live in the neighborhood they police.
Yeah, that sounds about right here too, right?
So now you can see how maybe defunding the police efforts and putting even the same money into a local security force curated by that neighborhood.
I'm so for that. I'm so for it.
But that's
I'm so for
just to be
fucking
clear. What
dismantling
everybody
whole
that is not
shit.
the main radicals is saying when they say defund the police
know.
is that. And so
I
when we
know.
go like, that's why it's like that's why the conversation's got to get real specific,
Mhm.
and that's how we avoid getting clipped on shit.
Yeah, and you're right. Like if I would have went into it more like, like here's what I understand. Here's what, how can we reach a solution and shit. I get this. And I am so for dismantling what the police department is now because you're right. It's full of corruption and they fucking stick up for each other. They look the other way. And if you're a fucking good cop out there and you see fucking someone, do something really fucked up, well, now you're a bad cop too. And you don't say shit, it's like you're a bad cop too. But there's a whole
a whole thing built around this idea of brotherhood, and that we can't turn on each other, and if you do turn on someone, then they
No,
turn
it's
on
like
you.
ingratiated into
Some
like
gangster shit, son. It's gangster
I've
stuff. So I am all about that, but they're fucking the whole defund the police thing just went off the rails because of the name of it. You know, I think it was just poor marketing,
we
honestly.
all can agree that that name caused a lot more conflict than it should have because nobody
And
cared
what
what it
ended
meant.
up happening is that some policies got implemented that wasn't maybe matching what they were asking for, what these protests were about, so there was some adverse reactions from this. So like,
Yes.
I'm not trying to sit here and fucking
But
harp
like
on that,
I would
but
argue that in 98% of places it went a different way than like the 2% of places it went really fucking sour.
okay. But these people are still suffering. You know, these are still people who are
Yeah,
out there
but
suffering now. And like, what? How do we figure this out? And I know it's going to take time, and I understand that. But it's like this solution obviously wasn't the way that wasn't working. And so how do we go back at it in a better way that gets the point across in a way that we can all get
well,
behind,
Mike,
that we all can see.
conversations like this and platforms like ours, here's something I saw in hip hop media, and I can't comment on everything, but I can absolutely comment on what I've seen. People will be like, "What do you think the problem with the local scene is?" I'm sure it happens in rock media because everybody's indie scene is trash. And then you start to realize that if everybody in the media is constantly going, the local scene is trash, and everybody that watches this content to see their homeboy hears that question and hears that answer, then maybe the way the media spin shit is actually the problem, and it actually goes down to the little clickbait seeking indie sources or the
And that's
profit
what the
seeking
fuck
indie
I'm trying to
sources.
say here, son.
I mean, I know you're trying to
It's
say
more
that.
it's more than just a race thing, because that is a part of it. I don't want to disqualify that. It's more than that. It's more than it's really, I think it's about like social economics. Like I seriously think it's about feeding this machine, this unchecked
But we don't
capitalistic
live with that
machine.
same. You remember that fear I was describing before, walking down the
Right.
street?
Again, I'm
I don't
not.
live with that
I'm
shit.
not.
So
I know. Again, and like I feel like
so it's like
I feel like every time I start talking about socioeconomics and get away from the idea that it's all about race, that you don't think that I'm incorporating that into my thought process,
I
because
just want
again,
other
I'm
people to also
acknowledging
think about
that.
it. Actually, it's not about you. I'm saying it for the sake of if somebody just
I
catches this
know.
part of the debate, I want them to have that in the back of their mind when they hear your point too. Sometimes I'm doing that.
Yeah,
Not
that's
gonna lie.
fine. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with reiterating big points. I just don't want you to think that anytime that I start deviating away from that
Nah.
narrative, and I think that's kind of the problem, is that the narrative is only this, and it only focuses on our differences, and it only focuses on that, when we should be sort of looking out into a broader picture, because there are people who are benefiting greatly with us fighting amongst ourselves rather than fighting against them. There's a lot of people who are benefiting from this, and making real power moves right now, in the guise of whatever, in the guise of Black Lives Matter. And I'm not calling Black Lives Matter that. I'm just saying that there are people who are
You can
co-opting these
argue that
ideas.
the organization has sects that have done questionable things, and that is a
Bro, what it was, the one lady, the one person, I don't know if it's the lady, but the one person just bought a mansion in Topanga Canyon and shit. It's
yeah,
just like, that's
definitely
like,
some weird shit. Not gonna lie about
right.
the organization, the philosophy, different thing. Specify
Exactly.
those two
But
things,
that's
you
what I'm
good.
saying. These philosophies are getting co-opted and taken over and amplified by bad actors. And mostly these bad actors are arms of the fucking are arms of the governmental institutions, arms of the fucking of the media institutions, and of the technology institutions. And that's what I'm talking about. And like, forever, it's like it's always been about like this idea of not having the resources against who has all the
So
resources.
how
And
do
once
how
enough
how do you propose that we fix this then? And I mean that
alien.
like in a super sincere way. Like what would you do then? It's okay, so fine. Everybody acknowledges this. Now we're at the next step, which is solutioning, right? So we can diagnose the very problem, which honestly we agree on. You do not have to convince me of anything you feel the main problem is. I do believe that a lot of shit's happening and that it is way bigger than a singular issue. And I come from some poor shit. I believe it on every level you're describing.
Yeah,
However,
I
so
come from shit too, man.
what do we do to like fix it then at that point? So we're in this position. You and I have media platforms. What do we do to fix it? So that's where the next question comes. So what's Mike's ideas on that?
My defense always is like
Not defense, your ideas.
Well, but like when you because some of these ideas are incendiary to some, and like and it does shut down a lot of it shuts down the conversation for a lot of people. I do have to sort of say it's like the fact that I do have to sort of defend these ideas because, well, obviously these ideas get people riled up. So I don't mind defending these ideas, and I don't mind talking about it. And I think the bigger thing is just talking about it and making it normal to talk about these things and not make it Pizza James. What's up, baby? It's good to see you. Yeah, we're in it, baby. But I think that we're talking. Shit, I forgot what Pizza Jams. What's up? I lost my little thing. What were we talking about? Get me going again. You gotta rev the engine.
You're kind of making sure that the arguments include all the details and that it's a complete picture where everybody is able to communicate in a way where everybody's kind of taken more seriously.
I think talking about it and talking about it and sincere, honest, and earnest talking about these issues is how we sort of move past them. But the way that we're polarized and the way that it's become so profitable to be polarizing in a capitalistic society, it's become very profitable for this kind of polarization. So how do you get something that's making people a lot of money? How do you get it to bring it back to the issues at hand? And that I don't know, because money.
Well, you know, my honest answer to you, my guy, we're literally doing it.
Yeah, and
you
that's
and I right now.
That's the whole thing. I was like fucking talking about it, and then other than that, it's like,
but like,
or aliens.
I have like
could unite us.
I mean, like, I do other things personally, but I can't speak for how other people want to approach it. But I started to identify benefits of my privilege in my life. As an example, when it comes down to music scenes, not many people have the kind of corporate and political training to deal with white collar fuckers as I do. Maybe with that, I can go and do two things. I can educate people because I have gained skills that let me learn very fast on certain areas of life where people don't. Like, I'm the Twitch plug. So I just wrote a guide today because I just wrote this guide. 1,400 words, how to get started on Twitch if you need it and you're a rapper in the city. Holla. Done. Why? Because that gives the education and empowers other people. It takes my position of privilege. And this is a lot inspired by gentrification, believe it or not. I am both from my neighborhood and actively gentrifying my neighborhood. And it's a really weird feeling because I'm both from my neighborhood and, because of what I did with my life, actively gentrifying it, raising the cost of everything. So it's like I started thinking about it. And that got me realizing that the main difference between a lot of people is that talking about it is like step one. But like we all kind of stop there, and step two is the give back part. And people are like, yo, shout out for the host, Pizza Gems. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, to me, it's really important to, Montreal's never going to pay for an interview. Other people in the future, I can't promise that it's free forever for everyone. Montreal is never going to pay for an interview. The rest of my life is going to be dedicated to representing my people, English, Montreal, hip hop, the music scene, just my people, you know, and using all of the privilege and position and toolkits that were given to me based on luck, dude. Who the fuck gets paid to go to Pakistan? That's some luck shit.
That's tight.
So, like, you get those experiences and you have two choices now. You can hoard it or you can share it. And my answer to the question of what do we do is to share that shit. Except that knowledge is quite like wealth. And many of us have knowledge that we hoard and we don't, like, share it. But if we focus on community knowledge sharing efforts and all we ever do is give knowledge out, then the overall consciousness of the people elevates beyond what a news source can keep up with, because they're pretty fucking trash at this shit right now and their power is diminishing. But it's like, you just got to let people know that they can do it too. You also have to recognize, and this happened, I had a moment where I accidentally said some racist shit and the guy called me on it. And he said to me, you have to understand that the black men of America have been beaten to the point where many of them have a level of low self-esteem that you can never understand. And you have to be more cognizant and conscious of your words, because you don't know the level of beating the person you're talking to is taken. And as we know in this life, that could be literally literal.
Yeah.
And it's like, damn, eh? So it's like, that's why we're like, knowledge sharing. That guy shared that knowledge with me. He didn't have to, but because he did, I can spare other people from maybe having to have that conversation, because trust, it doesn't cause me the same level of pain to have that conversation that had him. And I think a little bit part of the solution is that the white folk kind of got to start talking more to white folk about the real shit, and like the parents. And you hear grandma make a racist joke, check grandma's privilege. One of the weirdest conversations I have with my dad is when he called black people savages by accident, and I'm like, did you just do what I think you did? And he did, flat out did it. Sorry, Dad, if you're watching this, it is what it is. But he flat out did it, and I had to like call him racist to his fucking face, and it was mad uncomfortable, and he did not like that conversation. But that was his choice of words. Yeah. I didn't tell him to say that shit. He chose to say that shit.
So then do I call my Mexican uncles out who think the Jews are behind a lot of what's wrong with the world? Do I call them out too? Because we're talking about white people now, about calling white people out, but like, do we get to call out within our own race when they're acting like that?
I highly recommend that you get some education on the topic if you're going down that rabbit hole, because that's a rabbit hole where you're going to get murked real quick and end up wasting a lot of energy.
I mean, like, that's the thing. Obviously I
barely understand the Zionist plots.
It's so
it's like
stupid.
But like, I'm also Jewish, right? You might not know that. So like, as a Jew, I'm like, yo, anti-Semitism is real and it's on the rise. These are just things. Yeah, but
especially worldwide, it's weird.
I think it's really often wise to ask people what they actually mean and who they're actually speaking about. And then like I went to Israel because I'm Jewish and I did the free birthright trip. And I went the last time shit was popping off in 2014. So while I'm in Israel, we see fighter jets. Bro, you know what those fighter jets were doing? They were bombing Palestinians, and that's some fuckery to know that you're there and you're watching it in the sky and you're like, oh my fucking God, this is really actually real. So, right. But where I'm going with that is you talk to the Israeli people and they are not a reflection of their government. They are a scattered group of people, with the youth tending to hate the fact that they have forced military service, but you go to jail if you don't do it, so it's like a different reality. And then over here, people talk about that shit. So what I would do in a moment like that is just make the effort to point out that often people vilify governments and institutions, and it's not a reflection of all people. And maybe we shouldn't say, I fucking hate Israel, and we should be more specific like I am and say, I fucking hate Netanyahu and his policies.
Yeah. Well, I'm just coming up with the point of like this idea that there is hate within these within minority groups as well, where they don't like other minority groups, and that gets ignored too.
It's not, but like I said earlier, I don't think that's getting ignored.
But like you're saying, like we need to check on these white people, and white people need to check white people. But I think that everybody needs to check on everybody and being like, hey, that's
I definitely am of the belief that across all groups of people, the young people are checking the old people.
Yeah.
Look at Lil Nas X's career. Lil Nas X is one big fuck you to homophobia. Did you see his last video, everybody? Yeah, they are mad naked. So naked that and the song is so good that I'm looking at Jack Harlow like, why do I like your music? I don't even like your music, but y'all made a bop on this one.
I don't think the song is that great, but I thought the visuals were amazing. Like I love
pop rap now. I fucking like it too much.
I love anything that fucking says fuck you to the norm or fuck you to the as. Like when Marilyn Manson came out, when Eminem came out, fuck yeah, I was on board. Fucking Lil Nas X, yeah, make them uncomfortable.
So I can tell you for a fact that I know 100% that I have homies in other communities that are not of my ethnic background that assure me that within their own communities, what you are asking for is taking place. Now, is it universal? No, but this is all like flames getting sparked and starting.
or like homophobia in minority communities as well. Like
Dude,
that's
you
a
you
huge
don't
one
you don't
too.
you don't know how loaded that topic gets because it
I
ties
know
into
how loaded it
slavery,
is. I've
and then
heard
you
it.
end up in these really weird conversations where it's like, bro, I don't know how to touch that one yet, so I don't have great opinions, but I know that there are people that are challenging these norms
Yeah.
and that it is being addressed and that it is a topic. I
That's the
know it because
thing.
I see it in hip hop media, so I know for a fact that at least it's a topic for real.
Right, and I do too. I see it too, and especially with artists like Lil Nas X, challenging those things because you know what, he is challenging that even within his own community. He's challenging homophobia because that is a real thing, and people can hate me for fucking acknowledging that, and I'm
No, nobody
sorry,
hates you for
but
acknowledging that.
I've seen it with my own
Or
eyes.
let me
You know,
ask you a
I've
better
heard
question.
it.
Let me ask you a serious question. So
Sure,
I'll make a statement personally. Yeah, there's homophobia in the hip hop community and the whole urban community, and I understand it's a nuanced
it's getting a
topic.
lot better, by
But
the way.
looking at the situation as an outside observer without additional information, see all the things I'm saying here?
Yes.
This is how I just say this shit. But yeah, it's mad weird to look at, not fully understanding it. And when you see certain people on your Facebook share blatantly homophobic shit, it's uncomfortable. And you don't know. I don't have enough knowledge on how to approach it. I don't know that I'm even fully qualified to yet talk about it because when I started to dig into the topic, I was given such levels of, it goes back to white slave owners forcing men to fuck other men for masculine. And I'm like, oh, bro, we're going into topics now where I don't even know how to handle generations of white men emasculating black men and identity of black manhood being literally under attack and a lot of things that are very valid arguments that get attached to the homophobia that aren't so it's not a singular topic, it's actually a range of topics that are correlated, and I'm not educated enough to go deeper than that except to say that it's not like one thing, it's like a lot of things at once that are bro, like, anyway, when you really go into how a lot of the inner cities are like fucking set up and the dynamics, it's like it almost feels like a war on black men in a lot of places. Oh yeah, yeah, because I have my weed cutting scissors and my hands are flying because when I get really passionate, I can't help it. It
Put
just
your hands
happens.
in. Man, I got banned from smoking in the house, or else I'd be smoking with you right now. I ate those edibles, but they only last for so long.
Edibles. That's why you got to get the vapey shit you were puffing on
I
yesterday.
I have the vapey shit, but I'm not allowed to smoke that in the house either.
Oh, that's where you go, Reina. Look the other way.
No, I'm not gonna do that.
That's because you're.
Relationships are not built on secrets, okay? You have to be open minded, and you gotta communicate, right?
Yeah,
Communication.
big
I
fact.
think I think if we could distill this down, it's like this conversation down. It's communication, and it's like going about it in the most beneficial way for both people to be able to come out of it with minimal scarring. It's like shit. My vapey shit is charging. Oh, you gotta wait, baby. You gotta wait.
So, but like the thing is, Mike, is you're doing the things. I mean, I know for a fact you're gonna think about this conversation after, else there's no fucking way I would have spent this. I love this type of shit, for the record, but I wouldn't have spent the time with you if I didn't think you were actually gonna if it was gonna be a meaningful or productive thing in your life. Honestly, I'm like
Yeah.
that. If I don't think you're gonna listen, I'm not 100% going there that deep with you.
Yeah, and that's great, and I appreciate that.
But what I'm saying, sorry, to follow that up is that means that like you're actively participating in this thing that you want to see happening, and people criticize me a lot for desiring things that I'm actively participating in creating and not realizing that the changes are happening in front of my face, and I miss a lot of things, which kind of make me feel jaded in ways I shouldn't, because sometimes things are doper than I think they are because I get so caught up in my head and shit. And I think you might be able to relate to that sentiment. That's why I said it.
For sure.
Maybe because you feel the way you do, and I know you've come across enough people that you've talked to that feel the way you do. I've seen the passion and the way especially women have described the things that they're talking about on your show and all the different stuff that's out there, right? You're part of it. You're creating it. It's just that one was a speed bump, my guy.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, because by the way, I'm like 355 episodes in, and so you gotta understand, I when I first started my podcast, people didn't even really know what podcasts were. okay, and then fucking Serial and JRE and all these fucking podcasts brought it to the mainstream. And so we've been talking about this shit since the first BLM fucking movement with Trayvon Martin and oh man, I'm it's awful that I'm forgetting these names because they do deserve to be remembered. But they you know, like, so I've been talking about this. Show's been talking about this for years now, and so like everything that we're talking about, all these conversations is a culmination of where I am right now, and so I am constantly evolving. The show is constantly evolving, and my ideas are constantly evolving because I do get the privilege to talk to so many different artists, so many different people with different ideas, and that I get. I am truly privileged in the fact that I get to have all these perspectives that you know, bestowed upon me. You know, like I think it's amazing, and that most conversations I've had in the last 350 some episodes all ended with laughs, smiles, and like, you know, like and like happy that happened. I haven't really had one podcast where everyone left like, oh, that was awful or anything. It was like, it's always been something where everyone at the end
Yeah.
was like,
On that note, I've also never had one that ended shitty, and then I had to go to ask myself, okay, at least 12% of these motherfuckers hated that. There has to be a percentage, right? Like,
well, yeah,
there just has to be.
and like, even though, and like, you know, with the LG situation,
I don't think she did. I'm saying there just has to be a percentage.
I think that I know how I felt, and I hope that I didn't bring that kind of feeling onto her as much as I had it, because she did not expect it, and nor did she need that in her life if that fucked with her as much as it fucked with me. And and that to me is the worst part about the conversation, is that I just hope that she's not out there like fucking.
But like, that's the part where it's like, what I've been told on that subject, and again, this is more like, I got scolded way more times than that, dude. The number of times I've had the conversation you had, a lot. So
yeah,
what I'm
and
saying
by the
is,
way, this is the first time I've ever had like an interaction like that and so publicly, especially live setting, because live has only been a part of the show for about a year. So, you know, like I have a whole bunch of fucking back catalog where it's just me and a mic and another person, and so it's you don't
yeah,
have
no,
the interruption.
in Mike's like defense, I spent the entire episode reiterating a lot of shit I've said today in the comments. So he has the comments and her flipping on him. We had very little defense that day in the comments too. He was kind of taking it on all fronts. I want to say,
Raina too, like that. Raina was like, "Shut up!" Oh man,
I was yelling at my screen. I'm like, you don't know what the fuck you're doing, Mike. Shut the fuck up, Mike. Why did you say that? Why the fuck did you? And you didn't know what you were. That's what it is, and that's it. So people often like, and I have like, language is where it always goes to me, right? And here's one thing to remember about English: there's way more than one English. It's not like one English, and within like, there's at least 3 Englishes you're going to encounter. There's white English, which is the common one. I'm being real simple here. We'll call it black English because it is what it is. It's based on an entire lot of culture, a lot of things that create a certain level of urban slang. That's a separate English, but it's a valid language structure according to any linguist, right? Like, so it's like, it's still English, but it's just a different derivative of English. There's Creoles built into that, which is just already hybrid languages. And then, even within you have corporate English, you have academia English, these are all Englishes, but they're all like English, right? And I think we all forget that. And then like people be like not actually making any effort. The number one reason I don't have a lot of arguments in my life is because if you really watch for it, there's always going to be a word or expression that's a trigger point that people are arguing about when you're really at a point of conflict. And then you go, what did you mean? What did you mean? And I'll do this every fucking time. I Google the definition of the word, and then I read the definition of the word, and one of us is right on what that word meant every time. Or we're both right, and we realize we're both right. But one way or another, we find synonyms to better represent our core ideas and have a more aligned conversation. And frankly, I don't think people read a lot like they used to. At least in like the more whatever. People be audiobooking and shit and voice noting and shit. I'm just a reader, my guy. So language use is all I pay attention to.
that's one thing that I need to just step my game up because I'm a listener, and even my wife is always like, I think you just absorb information. Like I think you need to read it. I think you just doing too much.
Bro, big
You need
facts.
to sit with a book, let it absorb
you right
into
now.
your brain instead of, you're washing dishes, you're folding clothes, you're fucking doing this, doing that, and you're listening to a book, trying to absorb these huge ideas, and then you come out looking like a dipshit at the end of the day because, you heard some things here, some things there, and then you put some some flimsy idea of what it is in your head, and then all of a sudden you're fucking saying, you're saying blah, 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 whatever it is, and there's a myriad of that shit that goes on in my podcast. But again, my podcast has always been a place
It's mad
for
humanistic, man.
people,
It's a good show.
people to make mistakes and for people to express their ideas in a safe manner. And that's what I wanted. That's what I've built, is like a place for artists to come in and speak their truths and however they want to speak them. And like if they want to, if they don't, like I very rarely do I get people who start holding back how they really feel about something once that trust and connection is established. And that's that's the heart of a conversation, is the connection, establishing a true connection. So
Yeah, it's also, in my opinion, big facts.
big facts, connection, baby.
No, I mean, it's really what it is. I look at it like it's like when you're on a first date with a girl, except you're not trying to have sex, but everything else is true. So act like you're trying to have sex, but you're not trying to have sex. Like, don't be a creep about it. But like, that's really what this is. It's seduction. It's a dance of seduction of ideas and shit.
Exactly. And just like hollering at a girl, or hollering at a boy, or hollering at whoever you prefer, like you gotta fucking, you fucking put off too much of fear, that you can smell it if you put off too much fucking bravado and fucking, like you just come off as an ass, like all this shit, it matters. And inflections and how you like how you end a sentence matters in the way.
Matters less than you think, right? Because if
Well,
you can go
yeah,
back and say, but think about what this is my go-to.
Sure,
But think about what I just said, and I will verbatim repeat the words I said and go, maybe I said it poorly, but this is what I said and what I was trying to say to you, and at least for me, words matter. And it gets me out of a lot of trouble, my guy.
Right,
so much.
right. And when you're in these specific situations, especially when someone utters the words "I'm offended," like that is such a trigger for anybody, because no one wants to be that person who's offending people. I don't want to be a racist. And that puts people off of guard, like that. Like I like now, if this turned into a viral situation with like Twitter on my ass, I could see how that could fucking destroy somebody.
God, I would love this conversation to go viral.
But I'm saying, like, in a way where people are like piling on and being like, listen to this piece of fucking white piece of shit, fucking devil, Satan, like. That when that was turned on to me, when that and I've had that turned on.
Hold up, that lady did not give you that energy. I'm gonna defend her right now and say no, that's not what she did.
What do you mean?
She did not come at you the way you just cut, like, just because you're the white devil. That's a whole thing.
No. I
just
wasn't
in case
saying that, but like, but what I'm saying, like, it can turn into that very quickly, and.
But it's like,
but no one wants to be on the receiving end of that, is what I'm saying. Like, even because she did say I'm offended, and like, as soon as she said that, it was just like, ugh, you're being scared away.
To be honest with you, I used to feel that way. And now if somebody goes, I'm offended, I go, what did I do? I'll be honest, I don't know what I did to offend you. And I say some shit like that right away. Because I'll be real with you. I don't want to lose $1 million one day because I offended a person. And it's really, it's so crazy. A lot of my, like, this is capitalistically driven. It's ironic, but capitalism has driven me to be more polite and courteous, because it's just way easier to make money if you are. It's just the facts of a situation. So it's like, not only will this help you navigate life better with other people, you'll also make more money behaving this way. It's like, I don't know what people are really like. This is where personally I get confused, but sort of get it. but it's like everybody knows that we make more money being polite. Like, we just all know it inherently in our soul. And yet motherfuckers be out there, and this isn't you. This is like Sargon of Akkad and motherfuckers on YouTube that are really more like on that really like next level shit with it. They spent like a long time dying on the stupidest fucking hills, creating these weird situations. Like there was this attack on their fucking free speech when really they just wanted to make racist jokes and shit and get away with it like they used to get their YouTube bag and shit. And I started watching a lot of these people's arguments and I'm like, hold the fuck up. You're just mad you can't say that F word no more. You're mad that people can't say that no more. Even though everybody said it used to make them cry and shit. You're still mad that you can't say that word. That's fucked up that's what you're fighting for. And that's
Right,
kind of where like it comes off weird to me.
But
that's just me. When it's
Right.
like you can just not say the word, make more money, and have a happier life because nobody's going to fucking argue with you on some shit. What are we fighting for then? Like, what is the fight for? That's where I get confused with it on like a personal level.
I understand that, and I think it's the idea of compliance. Is like you must comply. You must call me they, or else you are being canceled. Like it's a compliance thing. It's a power thing. I think. I also think that when you're talking about people.
No shit. These are the same. Most of the people who are often like this are content creators. Content creators are people who hated authority and refuse to go to work. And they're the loudest advocates for this group of things. Whereas myself, I'm just like sitting there going, bro, I do that to get paid every single day of my life. It's weird that people are fighting like that hard just to be able to be offensive because they want to get paid like that.
But it doesn't just stop at offensive shit, man. It's about more than that. It's about when you're limiting speech, you're limiting ideas, and so like it doesn't just stop at the F word, and it doesn't just stop at the N word. It's like where does it stop, and who is making these decisions? And I know
think
you keep
it stops
saying
when people become more cognizant of how they use the words.
and that's fine, but there's also the idea that we're gonna force everyone to be and think on this same level is just nonsense. It's altruistic and it's not
The little ones are like universally on the same level, and it's just the old people struggling with their shit.
And I get it.
What I mean is
it will get
the
farmed
entire
out.
Dude, I've talked to like 25-year-olds in like 5 or 6 countries that are drastically different. Nah, it's just old people that are having trouble with this shit. Young people around the world are just like, bro, fuck off. We get it. And it's just people like older people.
There's plenty of young people.
Yeah,
because
because they're good marketers. Dude, I've seen, can't name names, but there's always one person on my Facebook whose role in life is to be what the WWE and other wrestling leagues would call a heel. Mm-hmm. Because of his occupation in the art industry, this is advantageous to his cash game. Mm-hmm. Therefore, he promotes particular ideas or wordings and things because it's capitalistically beneficial for him to do so. And I watched all these videos on Tumblr, Lore, and Reddit history, and 4chan world, and bro, eight times out of 10, some shit you're mad at comes from like an organized effort of like 7 people on 4chan, and it's not even real shit. So the amount of rage that's induced from fake shit, you know what? Here's what would make me feel better. If every time somebody got mad, they fact-checked that shit. Like fact-checked every single time they got mad.
But here's the problem, man, and this is the big problem too that you're facing about trusting data coming from these institutions that are quote unquote racist. Is like, fuck it, is that what is this information? Fucking the people who are making these fact checking, like it makes no
it's
sense.
A good point.
These fact checkers are just other people who are making the decisions that, like they can check it, but they are still like when you look at these fact checking institutions that we're starting here in the States, they're all left leaning and they have the same fucking ideals as the New York Times, as the Democratic Party, as Silicon Valley, as the going narrative.
Well, I meant it differently than that.
Okay.
And I said it because I didn't realize what I was saying was not clear until after. I'm pretty data literate. As in, part of my job, you could argue, is to be a data analyst and make predictions. Like, it's the only way I keep my job is to look at stats and interpret it in ways that mean something to other people. So I'm just not bamboozled by the language used by news media sources. I can just read the shit. Plus, back to the idea of audio. Do you listen to your news or do you read your news? That's an interesting question to ask people.
I read very little, if at all.
According to Malcolm Gladwell, is the only guy I can quote on this. I read his book,
I like
Talking
that.
to Strangers, or whatever, his most recent one, 2018-19 one. And in that book, he cites some science that I can't quote properly, but he quoted it and people think he's legit. And it was true. But in the book,
Yeah,
he
for sure.
describes the phenomenon of how news anchors by accident do shit like have subtle smiles and voice inflections when they talk about things they're in bias in favor of. So whoever you're listening to your news from, you're hearing their voice and their opinions oozing into it subtly. And there is a correlation of people who watch particular newscasters versus not, and a slight statistical increase in searches for particular political candidates based on the percentage of times a person smiled and little subtle things that there's no way any of us are cognizant of when we're consuming the audio form. But when you read it with your eyes, what you can do is Google every fucking word and think about what it means with a voice telling it to you. You're just left with you and the words of the author. So I tend to just read my news, and then I'm really not afraid to bust out some fucking peer-reviewed study and try to work my way through that. And I'm slow and I'm clunky, but I know enough about stats and data to like read what they're saying and make sense of like not just the I fucking love science article, but like the next level article. So my answer to you would be like the kids. The kids are all data literate because they grew up on Instas and shit, looking at analytics their whole life. They all did that shit. They wanted the hearts, but that taught them to be data analysts. So they call bullshit quicker. So the real answer to you, Mike, is the old people got to get their data game up and learn some shit that they've been putting off because they're afraid of technology if they really want to compete and not be so brainwashed by the media sources that are leveraging that data against them. Become more data literate, which is something you're actually pushing for.
Yeah, I absolutely. I'm all about like data. I like data too. I think there's a lot to be learned from it, and it can be sterile, but I think that's a good thing. That data should be sort of a sterile thing that we ingest and not sort of thrown around and made into such a spectacle as it is now. And I'm saying like, with news media and how data is sort of used.
No, they trash. Super trash.
So it's and like I know what you're saying now too, where like people need to become their own fact checkers and not even rely on these fact checking institutions, but like actually go through, read the source material and form opinions for yourself, which most people don't have the time to
Facts, but that's sort of not true because most people find the time for Netflix.
Well, they find time, right? Exactly. Well, it's just what people are willing not to do, and they're not. They'd rather get this clickbait, hot article, the hot take article thing, and use that as their fact base.
That's not that. I'm gonna counter that.
Sure.
I don't. Every time somebody says whatever about people, here's the truth about people: they like quality content, no matter where it comes from. News got free. That's something that changed that nobody wants to acknowledge. We all said the news is no longer worth our $8 a month. Right. And so we stopped paying for good journalism. And then we got mad that the journalism got shitty. And then we refused to pay for it. And then it got shittier because now the journalist is an influencer. And they don't want to be an influencer. They want to be a journalist. And guess who did that? Us. The people who stopped paying for the news because we decided we didn't need to. But that's what
the internet was. The internet was an open platform to discern and put out.
But who's supposed to pay for the news? The actual journalism. Who's supposed to pay for that?
Yeah, exactly. And who's supposed to pay?
We used to, and they were really good. We stopped, and they got really bad. So they went to the rich people and said, "Daddy, please, what do I got to do for you, Daddy?" Right. And that's what happened because we, the general population, said Netflix was worth $8 more than the news. So maybe there is a degree of ownership that the people, and I know a lot about content marketing, and I can justify what the fuck I just said with excessive detail, but nobody wants me to talk about ad rates and click-through rates and CPMs. Nobody wants that, unless you do. But
that's just interesting.
But the fact is, suffice it to say, the news got cheap because y'all said ads is good enough, and nobody wants to pay for it. Look at it. We want patrons too. We want fucking followers because we're going, our content's worth some money. And motherfuckers be like, you know what? Ads is good enough. Except for Mighty Mighty, who fucking gives you such an insane amount of money that it's like, what the fuck? But that's amazing shit.
Mighty Mighty is awesome. Mighty Mighty's been there since the beginning. Mighty Mighty found us.
But just seeing Mighty Mighty makes me feel inspired because one day there might be a Mighty Mighty that shows up. I got a mini Mighty Mighty. It's not quite the Mighty Mighty, but I have a mini
I love
one.
Mighty Mighty. And by the way, I gotta do it. Mighty Mighty. There you go. Mighty Mighty is a huge supporter, and even beyond monetary, like Mighty Mighty is in the chat. Mighty Mighty is hyping up the crowd. Mighty Mighty says hi to people when they come in. Not only is Mighty Mighty an amazing contribution monetarily, which Mighty Mighty does not have to do. I do not require that of anybody who checks in at my spot, but also they're just a valuable member of the community. They're constantly saying hi to new people, welcoming people. I mean, that is so valuable.
That's facts. They say hi every time.
It's such a valuable thing that it's much more valuable than any money that they could ever contribute.
And they're like here.
You don't have to.
No.
Give me
Mighty
money.
Mighty being here like the whole time riding it through. Trust, it's not me. It's you.
Yeah. Hey, no. Well, you know what? Mighty Mighty's awesome, and
I might be facilitating it, but that's your diehards. That's here.
But that's what happens in this kind of interviewing situation is that communities, the audience can be transient, right? Because you talk to somebody and their community comes over, and then what's the chances that they come back and say hi?
Shut up, Pizza Jams. On that note, who's come back to my shit without you? Pizza Jams, I seen you.
And Pizza Jams the shit too, man. Pizza Jams,
I liked your beat. I rapped on your beat, and it was very lovely. Pizza Jams, I just want to give you your flowers. And if you have beats, my guy, I know lots of rappers, is all I'm saying.
Holden, I have to let my sister's dog out of her house, so I have to go soon.
That's
sorry.
That's very fair.
I forgot.
It's like 3 hours, 45 minutes, and you're like, I'm sorry, we got to cut it short.
I had no...
We're on the long end of interviews at this fucking point.
Well, I had no qualms on keeping going, but I just remembered that, and actually Raina texted me, and she was like, we got to let your fucking dog out. I was like, oh shit, I forgot about that. So
it's fair, man. I appreciate that, though. This was a good conversation. I'm not going to lie. I don't know how much longer I was fucking going with that. Because I was like, maybe I like 10, 15 ladies. Give them a little boost past the norm. But so I'm with that. And I appreciate you for real, coming through and having this conversation. Because, end of the day, it was mad uncomfortable. But it's like Band-Aids and shit. And I think if you really process like that, and my honest advice to you is you'll make way more money if you just say thank you instead of I'm sorry.
Yeah, I feel you. I come from the school of apology. It's a very Midwest thing to do. It's a very sorry about that. And you're constantly apologizing for your existence on Earth. They're just like, sorry, I was in the way.
God, I'm a Canadian. That's our niche. But even in customer service, if you contact customer service, the common answer is I'm sorry. I'm actually kind of radical, and I forced us to not apologize. I had to justify that decision to my boss with a lot of the language I use for you, but it's because it is a smarter way to actually get what you want out of people. So I'm talking about motherfuckers who either hate my company / want a refund / want to talk some shit, and I'm saying that's the best way to deal with the most extreme cases in my professional. There's no way. It's psychology. If you think about the linguistics of it, I just want to emphasize that one last time for everything. But shout out everybody.
There's nothing wrong with showing respect, man. Showing respect to your fellow human being, there's nothing wrong with that. And by acknowledging them and saying thank you, you are showing a certain amount of respect that, that goes above and beyond. I just personally am I just have it in me to apologize if I do something wrong to somebody. If someone feels wronged by me, the natural reaction for me is I'm sorry, I apologize. But thanking someone and then working in an apology later, it seems
you don't even need to apologize.
I'm sorry, Holden. I'm sorry.
And here's the thing, man. I used to be Mr. I'm sorry. I used to do it all the time. But what I realized is even the psychology of apologies, just real quick, it stems into you're doing it for yourself, right? That's why in the 12 steps, it's a step. It's for you. It's never really for the person you're apologizing for, which is why in those
left off the hook, you want to be absolved of your actions.
Facts.
And so therefore it's selfish, yeah.
So within that moment, you're not really doing it, I think, for what you really want to do is thank them and get to that understanding. So this is just another way to get there without compromising who you are. And that's what's beautiful about language. As a rapper, we know all about language manipulation, right? And we talk in code.
Yeah. That's a great information. Like, I love that. I love I watch certain things only because it helps my the way that I communicate and the way I interview. So I'll read books about interviewing. I'll listen to books on tape about interviewing things. I love this YouTube channel. I think it's called JTC, and it's all inmate interrogation videos, and it's mostly Canadian. I think it's a Canadian channel. I think the dude's a Canadian.
That sounds like some shit Canada's government would pay for.
Yeah, dude. Like, because there's a lot of Canadian criminals up there that he breaks down, but he breaks down the interrogation and does, like, he analyzes body movement, analyzes how people talk, and, like, would break something down, like, instead of saying I'm sorry, he could just said thank you, the same way you just did it, like linguistic breakdowns of what people are saying, why people are saying it. So it's, like, really interesting, and it makes you, and it kind of gives me a unique approach on how I go about it. I mean, in whatever way, like, I'm not sitting here interrogating people, but it can feel like that sometimes, and it can be like that.
It's the unfortunate reality of the rules we face. Thus, the toolkits we employ are all we have. And broadening that toolkit will only make you more money, which...
I love that you keep bringing it back to money because
it's like the most important part of this equation that nobody ever talks about. It's like the dumbest shit. Like, let's fight for the right to make less money generally. You know who makes the least money in art? The most obscene fuckers since time. They're always the most niche and they have the least money, and they're all like, I'm super broke, fuck y'all. And I'm personally going, I don't think that's really what I want my career to be, right? Like,
but I can't, I'm not gonna just do this shit I don't believe in just for money either.
Which is fair, but have the cognition that, like, you're not gonna get the pay and the love you want if you're counterculture. Like, you have to understand your role in the pecking order of thing, and there's a cognitive dissonance when motherfuckers want to get paid the same amount as the clean people without understanding that it's never been like that. Like, clean makes money. Child friendly always makes more money.
Or disruption. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, there's fucking people making some good money being.
But they're like the exception, not the norm. Most of that community's broke as fuck.
Yeah. You see some of these, like, you see some of these alternative news sources and stuff. They're going into that subscription model of like, because they're getting banned off YouTube and they're getting demonetized, so they are starting to sort of adopt that subscription model where they're funneling people to their website where they can't be censored and stuff. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's not just what's funny is all of my favorite left-wing science YouTubers and shit are getting the history YouTubers are also getting censored, and the science and history YouTubers are doing the same thing. Yeah. It's actually across the spectrum. It's both sides getting hit that aren't even aware that the other side's getting hit for the same thing. Both sides are making the same move, unaware. That's why my shit's called Bridge the Gap, because frankly, that's the biggest issue we facing.
And you know what? I ended up using that phrase when I was talking to somebody about the LG. Like, I ended up talking to Cartagena on the phone because now we're homies, I guess. We call each other son. But, like, he was the one who dropped the black on black crime. Now, he went to Howard University. He's a Latino. He's a dark-skinned Latino who went to Howard University, which is a historically black college, and so he definitely, this is stuff that he's interested in. And so when he drops black on black crime, what about black on black crime? I mean, he's speaking from experience, and he's speaking from a place
but that you said he's academia, right?
He is academic as
fuck.
So
let me tell you something about academia's jargon.
Again, I'm not trying to do the black on black thing.
Nah, I'm just saying. No, what I'm trying to say is, but let's go back to that thing.
Talking about it from experience as well.
Academia's jargon be racist as fuck because it's based off of those same systems like the book I'm reading. So if we understand the jargon might come from a place that isn't necessarily like clean, then maybe he's using that words because it's how he gets paid, but maybe the language and the system that he's in is 2 steps shy of being what the other systems is, I'm not really into academia though. I think they're kind of evil. That's
just,
my
it's
2
weird
cents.
that we don't acknowledge that there's a whole set of like black and brown people who are like
No, everybody like
awful,
acknowledges
bro.
it.
Like people who fucking hate the idea of critical race theory, like black and brown people who hate
Dude,
the
I don't
idea
know what the fuck critical race theory is.
It's the idea of fucking that acknowledging fucking that you're white. It's the idea of fucking it's something that they're trying to teach the kids, which is also, by the way, a lot of propaganda shit, like people talking about like they're trying to teach our kids to hate white people, which is like a big overreaction. And
That's so
but
weird.
there are certain things that about it that my whole point was that there is a whole sect of black and brown people, a lot, by the way, not just a little, a lot of black and brown people who are like, I don't really like the idea that we're focusing on race all the fucking time. That doesn't make me comfortable. Why should I fucking, like I worked really
Yo,
hard.
but that's literally like, it's, you know what's crazy to me? Is the only country I see who takes that approach is the USA and maybe England. But like the rest of the world is like, bro, give me labels. Let's investigate those labels. Tell me about your culture. Oh, your culture's fucking like that's how I grew up, my guy. Multiculturalism as an ethos is real Montreal. So instead it's like, tell me your labels. I'll tell you my labels. Let's explore our labels together. So like I don't want you to be taking my fucking labels away because it makes you uncomfortable. That's not even taking into consideration what other countries on earth might think makes sense. That's some American shit. And you know what? In the context of America, love it. Internet's the whole world. That's something America does have to remember.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, again, I'm going to make this point in just in defense of America, and I know how fucked up we are, and then I have to go and I have to pee. Is that fucking for anybody who fucking thinks that America is this awful place? Well, stop fucking appropriating our fucking art, then, motherfuckers. Like fucking
Nobody thinks America is inherently an awful place. We think your government's fucked up.
Yeah, and some of the people here are fucked up too, but
no, mostly there's a lot of racism.
We have the
yes,
art that fucking drives the fucking world. So fucking y'all want to hate on America?
Bro,
go ahead.
who's the number one artist on earth right now?
Drake,
the Canadian Team Canada. Anyway, I appreciate y'all for dude. The guy's like 11 years deep, my guy. He's done. He's like is.
Then before that, who was on top?
You guys had it. Now let's
what culture is he appropriating to be on top right now?
I don't know how much he's appropriating.
American rap culture, son.
Bro, that's like a big statement. That guy made Canadian pop music a thing because he's pop music.
Hip hop. Come on,
Nah, ignorant people call it. To me, with my nuanced perspective.
Okay, Mr. Fucking Underground over here calls them a very specific thing, but the rest of the world,
I don't think the rest of the world knows a damn thing about hip hop. To be honest with you,
of course they don't. Of course they don't.
So it's like ignorance put that label on them.
Everybody's an expert when they're on fucking social media and Twitter. Right?
I don't think they're experts. I think you're right. Most #data gang, get your knowledge on, read books, motherfuckers. That's the kind of shit I'm on. I want people to be more clear.
I do like Drake, by the way, though. I do like Drake, but you know who I like better than Drake? And he's fucking right from here, the good old US of A.
No idea.
Hold on. I'm gonna show you.
I feel like you're looking for an email. While he's doing that, thank y'all for watching, everyone. Appreciate y'all being here. For those of you watching in the future, too.
ODB!
Yeah, straight up, ODB's pretty fire. I like Drake better. I'm not gonna lie. Drake has way more songs out that are just fire. Drake has more top amazing songs than ODB does have in solo tracks in his career.
I mean, at the end of the day, Drake is
no disrespect to ODB. I fucks with him too, but Drake's Canada, and if you ain't hip hop and you ain't repping your country, what you doing, my guy? Stills, thanks y'all for watching For Real Reels. Honestly, I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all in the future, Stills, because a bunch of y'all stuck it through to the end, and y'all are wonderful. Thank you for coming through, Mike. It's wonderful that you had this conversation. We created this excellent piece of content together. Future people, like, follow, subscribe, and all that good shit. Special thanks to patrons. It's Mechigan, Nancy, Chris Pratt, Jonathan Barnes, DJ Black Hurricanes, and William Scribble. To help support what we do, patreon.com/behind that suit if you want to support what we do too, or if you want to do the Amazon Prime sub free thing. But come on, every time people are here, they're already subbed to somebody else, so I know what it is. On that note, live long and prosper, everybody. And all of Mike's links and shit are linked below. / have been popping up so you can follow We Speak English Good, and you really should. And Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate y'all. I really do. I really do. I have to pee so bad. Is there a raid call?